was saying the same thing.
GBNews exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first. GBNews came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
But journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
Charlie Peters, he gave a voice to the victims of grooming gangs, and now, of course, it's led to a national inquiry.
GBNews exists to make sure those concerns are put forward, and people feel as though what they want to ask is put to those in power.
We don't take orders from anyone. We ask the questions our viewers and listeners want answering.
I know what's actually being discussed by my family and my friends. Us ordinary, hard-working British people have had enough. We've had enough.
They're fed up with the same old establishment nonsense. Everything that we do is opening up conversations that others are afraid to go at.
Why are you illegally bringing people into Britain?
That is our job. Our job is to get to the truth.
If it's important to you watching or listening at home, then it's important to us as well.
That's what makes us the fearless champion of Britain.
A very, very good afternoon to you. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. Here's what's coming up on today's action-packed show. Breaking news, Sir Keir Starmer's head of communications, Stephanie Driver, has reportedly quit, leaving the embattled government in deeper crisis. And Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has given his clearest hint yet that he is gunning to be Labour's next leader, and it sparked a civil war in the party. Keir Starmer loyalists have blasted Burnham, claiming his high-tax, high-spend approach will make him Labour's Liz Truss. We'll have all the latest on this developing story. And meanwhile, that man, Boris Johnson, he's back.
My concerns, as I say, and they're serious concerns, are about the approach to the economy of the Reform Party and the approach on national security.
Boris Johnson has blasted Nigel Farage as a threat to national security, adding the Reform UK leader's stance on Vladimir Putin is, quote, extremely dangerous. Does Boris have a point, or is he merely bitter about Mr Farage slamming him this week for the so-called Boris wave? And data seen exclusively by GBNews has revealed an astonishing 1,025% boom in asylum seekers who claim to be the victims of modern slavery. But with 7 of the top 20 worst offenders for slavery being European Union member states, is this true? Or is it simply the latest ruse to remain in the UK? Also coming up, are the Falklands once again under threat?
Over the Malvinas, South Georgia, South Sandwich Islands and the surrounding maritime areas that continue to be illegally occupied.
Yes, at the United Nations yesterday, the Argentinian president set his sights firmly on reclaiming the Falkland Islands. He claimed they were illegally occupied by Britain and said Argentina taking them back was legitimate. On today's show, I'll be joined by Falkland hero Simon Weston to get his choice thoughts. And that's all coming on today's cracking show. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. It sincerely is. And thank you for your continued support of the People's Channel. Exclusive data today, 1,025% increase since 2014 in so-called modern slavery claims. Is it true or is it a ruse? And here's one for you. Do you know there are now more parking wardens in Britain than soldiers in the army? Is there a greater metaphor for what our country has become? A nation of clipboards in high-vis vests going around stuffing tickets under your windshield wipers while we can't even defend our own borders. Get in touch, let me know your thoughts today. The usual way, gbnews.com/your say. That's your headlines, and here's Katie Bowen.
Martin, thank you and good afternoon. The headlines at 3:03 and more on that developing story about Sir Keir Starmer's head of communication shortly. But elsewhere today, 2 more migrants have been removed to France under the government's partial returns deal, bringing the total to 6. The latest deportations involved an Afghan and a Somali, following returns last week of people from Iran, Eritrea, India and Afghanistan. The pilot scheme agreed with France in July allows small boat migrants to be detained and sent back across the Channel in exchange for the same number approved through the safe and legal routes. The first arrivals under the deal, a family of 3 with a young child, landed in Britain on Wednesday. It comes as the Home Office was refused permission to appeal a ruling granting an Eritrean man a temporary block on his deportation. Andy Burnham says Labour MPs have urged him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the party leadership, but he insists he is not plotting a return to Westminster. The Greater Manchester Mayor says he's ready to play any role as Labour faces what he calls an existential threat. Burnham defended his record, saying he'd been working behind the scenes on the Hillsborough Law. Chancellor Rachel Reeves said that the Prime Minister is focused on delivering real change.
Well, we've seen this film a few times before. When Keir ran for the leadership, people said that Labour couldn't come back from the catastrophic defeat at the 2019 election. Then people said, you know, he couldn't overturn that huge Conservative majority. He won a landslide victory just over a year ago, and Keir and the whole government are focusing on the change that the country voted for, including putting the money into communities like this one in Woodside. Real change, making a difference to people's lives. And in the same way that this government are delivering change, I know that Andy is focused on delivering change in Greater Manchester.
Unison has thrown its weight behind Bridget Phillipson to become Labour's next deputy leader, calling her a strong, persuasive and passionate voice. The backing comes from the union's Labour Link Committee, made up of party members from across the country. Chairwoman Linda Hobson praised Phillipson's understanding of unions and said she'll be a powerful voice for public service workers. The endorsement marks a major boost in the race for Labour's deputy leadership. Nigel Farage has pressed the Bank of England to embrace cryptocurrency and rethink money printing after his first formal meeting with Governor Andrew Bailey. The Reform UK leader, who once branded Bailey hopeless, called the talks encouraging, but warned the bank was still moving too slowly. It comes as Reform is pledging to save tens of billions of pounds by stopping interest payments on central bank deposits and halting quantitative tightening. But Labour has compared Mr Farage to Liz Truss 2.0, warning his policy would mean higher mortgages, bills and weaker rights for working families. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been sentenced to 5 years in jail for criminal conspiracy over millions in illicit funds from Libya's Gaddafi. The Paris court cleared him of corruption and illegal campaign financing, but said he let aid seek financial support for his 2007 campaign. The 70-year-old insists the case is politically motivated, but the ruling means he faces prison even if he appeals. He was also fined €100,000. The taxi driver who dropped off the Southport killer at the dance class where he murdered 3 children has told a public inquiry he regrets not calling the police sooner. Driver Gary Poland did not call emergency services until 50 minutes after hearing screams at the Heart Space, having picked up another fare and returned home first. Giving evidence to the Southport inquiry today, Mr Poland said he threatened to call the police when Rudder Cabana ignored his requests to pay, but thought he'd gone inside to get money where the Taylor Swift-themed dance class was being held. He added that he thought there was a gunman and that he could be a target. Rudder Cabana murdered Elsie Stancombe, BB King and Alice de Silva Aguiar and attempted to murder 10 others in the attack in July last year. And ministers are weighing emergency support for Jaguar Land Rover's suppliers after a cyber attack shut down production last month. The hack forced JLR to suspend its IT systems, halting output at 3 UK plants until at least October. Unions say the disruption, costing $50 million a week, threatens tens of thousands of jobs in the supply chain. Options on the table include government-backed loans or even stockpiling car parts to keep smaller firms afloat. A Commons committee will hear evidence from affected businesses later today. Those are the latest GBNews headlines for now. More on that breaking news from Sir Keir Starmer's government shortly. Now, though, a quick look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club. proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3385 and €1.1437. The price of gold is £2,786 and 24 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100's at 9,217 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Thank you, Katie. Now, we'll begin with some breaking news this hour. Reports that Sir Keir Starmer's head of communications, Steph Driver, has sensationally quit office, leaving the government in even further crisis. And this comes after the huge news that the Mayor of Manchester, Andy Burnham, who has claimed that the Labour Party MPs are privately urging him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the Labour Party leadership. And he also refused to rule out a challenge to the PM before May's local elections. Well, allies of Sir Keir Starmer have, however, hit back and said that Mr Burnham would be Labour's Liz Truss and would crash the markets. So much to get our teeth into there. And I'm joined by Chris Hope, GBNews' political editor. Chris, let's start with this dramatic resignation. What do we know about Ms Driver?
So Steph Driver is one of the most important allies of Keir Starmer going back years. I've known her since Keir Starmer was in opposition. She was his gatekeeper for the press. She understood what made him tick. She understood what got the best out of him, how to help him communicate through the media. Of course, he was obviously formerly a DPP, very much an official, not used to the rough and tumble of politics. This is a blow for Keir Starmer. We've got statements here now emerging from the Prime Minister and from Steph Driver herself. The Guardian reporting she's standing down after a period of leave for family bereavement. Keir Starmer said this, that Steph Driver was a loyal and valued member of his team for 5 years. She played a leading role in transforming the Labour Party and delivering the historic election win. He's forever grateful for her calm, wise counsel, leadership and humour, and wishes her undoubted success. And Steph Driver saying there that it's an honour to work for him. Being part of the team to rebuild and rebrand the Labour Party, securing that victory, of course, is an achievement and experience like no other. She's proud of what the government has delivered and thanked the sharp and talented Number 10 press team. Grateful for the PM's faith in her. So, in him. And her too. So that's why it matters. It comes after other advisors have left. Paul Overton, who was the head of strategy, who was going to be a big role in writing the PM's speech at the party conference this weekend. Matthew Doyle, who was the predecessor before Steph Driver. Lots of change, and it's not great. These are people who know him very well. What you want is stability in the back team around the top man, Prime Minister.
Stability is the last word you'd apply to this government at present. We've had the chaos around Angela Rayner, Peter Mandelson, and now the King of the North, they've been calling it, Andy Burnham, hoving interview on the eve of Labour's conference. Now, once again, they're fighting like cats and dogs in the Labour Party.
Well, it's a Game of Thrones-type drama, this. The King of the North is Andy Burnham. He's been Mayor of Greater Manchester since 2017. King of the South, or the King, maybe, against the pretender, that's Sir Keir Starmer. He's in charge, but Andy Burnham is saying he knows of his own MPs who want me to replace him. He's published what is seen as a kind of COD manifesto, more council tax in the south of England, spend the money in the north, £40 billion more on council houses, income tax cuts, 50p new high rate of income tax. That's been described, of course, as a Truss-like manifesto for chaos. Yeah, and so it goes on.
It's high tax, high spend, high borrowing. It's definitely to the left of Keir Starmer. But here's the point. The polls are showing that the public perhaps are so disillusioned with Sir Keir Starmer, they would back Andy Burnham in a head-to-head race with Reform. So the polling at present, with Sir Keir Starmer in charge, 25% Labour versus 28% Reform. But with Mr Burnham in control, Labour slides into the front, 30% Labour versus 28% Reform. Is there any way, though, that this could happen, or is it just scurrilous talk?
Of course it could happen, but there's lots of ways it won't happen. He's got to resign his mayoralty. He has said he'll stay until 2028. That would be a broken promise. He's only going to win a Westminster by-election, probably in Greater Manchester, against a resurgent Reform UK party. No guarantees there. He becomes an MP. He's got to win the backing of 80 MPs to stand against Keir Starmer. And guess what? you've got to beat Keir Starmer, who won the landslide last July. 4 big ways he can't do it, I think. Doesn't mean it's not true, by the way. It means this is a proxy, a safe way to discuss removing Keir Starmer without actually making it happen for Labour MPs. What's more interesting is who's the proxy? Is it Ed Miliband? Is he the person who will benefit? Of course, he's not behind this. I have no evidence he's behind any of this at all, for sure. But someone within his MP now may be looking at this going, this is helping me, maybe replace Keir Starmer, maybe after the May local elections. I don't think it's going to be Andy Burnham. It might be someone else.
If Ed Miliband is the answer to Labour's woes, are they asking the right questions?
He polls highly amongst Labour members. You've got concerns about...
What about the general public?
You've got concerns about Ed Miliband, as members of the public might have, over he's a failed leader in 2015. Critics of net zero don't like him for those reasons, but the base like him. And that's why you look at Boris Johnson, you know, the base like him, who's less popular in the country.
But the public have woken up to Boris Johnson. The public surely have woken up to Ed Miliband. I'll put it to you. The Labour Party needs to stop navel-gazing and look to the broader electorate to see actually who could win. Do you think Ed Miliband could win a general election right now? Seriously?
I don't know about that. All the parties have got this upset. Talking about other party leaders, by the way, we've seen Nigel Farage at the Bank of England today with his deputy, Richard Tice. Of course, they haven't got a shadow chancellor, but we assume it might be Richard Tice if the reform form of government. It's just worth... I mean, they talked about cryptocurrency, which is one of Nigel Farage's bugbears. The Bank of England should regulate it better like they do in America, and so it goes on. But just take a step back here. You've got the leader of a party with 5 MPs. Nigel Farage is definitely below the salt. If they had a big banquet at the Bank of England 2 years ago, Nigel Farage is nowhere near the eye line.
Nigel Farage called Andrew Bailey hopeless in the past.
And now he's hosting him for coffee. That shows how far reform has come in a year. It shows how the reform bubble is nowhere near bursting, if it will burst, and it's a big moment for Nigel Farage. I think, knowing Nigel Farage, what he wants often is respect from the state establishment. This is them giving him respect, and he'll remember this today for a long time, I think. Even though it may count for not a hill of beans, it matters to him.
Chris Hope, superb as ever. Please stick with us. Let's bring my next guest in now. That's the founder of Turn Left Media, Curtis Daly. Curtis, a pleasure to have your company. I'm assuming you're licking your lips at the prospect of Andy Burnham being a challenger to the helm as the next potential leader of the Labour Party.
I certainly wouldn't be licking my lips. Look, I have a lot of respect for Andy Burnham. There's a lot of policies I agree with, but I'm someone of the left who absolutely despises the Labour Party. I feel like I don't really have a stake in this. So I'm going to offer analysis of what I think about how he will be received. I do think it's a good thing that he can move the Overton window back to the left. Now, Reform are very successful when the conversation is around immigration, around asylum seekers. That's their terrain. And the Labour Party are more successful when they talk about the working class, a redistribution of wealth and power, all these sorts of the bread and butter issues. And Keir Starmer has completely abandoned all those things. He's taken millions of pounds from private corporations. Now, will Andy Burnham become leader? 99% no. First of all, he has to find a seat to win, and there's no such thing as a safe seat anymore. So especially with Reform or maybe the Greens knocking at the door. So we need to find a seat. Then he needs to bypass the Labour machine, who do not want him. I mean, you've seen comments from Keir Starmer's team embarrassingly attacking him, by the way, saying that he's Liz Truss. I mean, these guys need to get a new insult. They just call everyone Liz Truss that they disagree with.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly. Andy Burnham is, of course, popular with the membership. If he does get to the membership, they will vote him in. Sorry, go on.
Curtis, my point to you is you clearly would like the Labour Party to go even more to the left than Andy Burnham, and he is to the left of Sir Keir Starmer, undeniably, is high tax, high spend, high borrowing. He'd like to nationalise a lot of key public sector, railways and so on and so forth. But I want to pick up on one of your previous points there about the Labour Party being the party of the working class. That's a fantasy. Labour Party has totally abandoned the working class. The Labour Party is now a party of the metropolitan liberal class, the university class, the champagne socialists, which is a slur you might not like. The working classes don't respond to the Labour Party anymore. The working classes, I put it to you, have gone to Reform UK.
Definitely true that the Labour Party have abandoned the working class, and that started a very long time ago. I would say around Tony Blair, because Margaret Thatcher even said that New Labour was her greatest achievement. He started privatising public industry. They were looking at funding from big corporations. So you're absolutely right. The Labour Party, especially under Keir Starmer, does not represent the working class. What Andy Burnham does potentially represent is, and I've spoken to many reform voters, by the way, who are actually fairly left on the economy, maybe on social issues, not so much. On the economy, people are quite unified. People want to see public ownership of public services. They don't want to see privatisation anymore. And Keir Starmer doesn't speak about that. He completely lied when he ran for leader. He never was going to do this, by the way. So even though I don't think Andy Burnham is going to become leader, I also am sceptical that if Andy Burnham can bring back a lot of voters, because there are many people who left the Labour Party who will never vote for them again, including me. I voted Labour in 2017, 2019, and then when I saw Keir Starmer, I knew he was a complete corrupt liar. I voted for the Greens in 24. I'm not going to vote Labour again. So I do think that Andy can bring some people back, but at the end of the day, most people feel like the Labour Party has no goodwill left. But I do think putting nationalisation back on the agenda, talking about, and there's two things actually really importantly that Andy Burnham did speak about, which I think is really important, is we have an unstable market. The bond market is unstable. We also have an unstable government. And the two major things that could address this is, one, PR, because first past the post now breeds unstable governments, and two, mass privatisation, because we don't have stable investment. State-led investment can be very stable in an economy. So I am very happy that Andy Burnham is talking about these things. I'm very happy that we can maybe shift the debate back to the left or the centre left. And, obviously immigration is a really important topic, but I would like to speak more about economic policy rather than immigration. But can Andy Burnham win anyone back? Very doubtful, but he won't get there because Labour insiders, again, his team will not have him in the party, or they won't.
Curtis Daly, you've clearly had your Weetabix, but we have to leave it there. Let's get you back on the show. You're a fantastic guest. I think you know your onions, mate. Let's get you back on Turn Left Media. Curtis Daly, thank you very, very much indeed. God, that guy can talk more than you, Chris. on a serious point, can the country afford to swing to the left? OK, Liz Truss is always rolled out as the bogey woman for any political opponent of the Labour Party, but he undeniably is a high tax, high spend, high borrowing, left-wing politician. The country can't afford that at the moment, can it?
Well, it needs something to start growth happening. The left would say maybe that's the answer, tip money into the economy and get the economy going, but the risk is inflation. Of course, the right would say that's not the answer. There should be some cuts to spending and maybe some tax cuts too, and that's a different way of getting money into the economy. But something has got to change. The economy is anemic, growing anemically, low next year, inflation is set to go up. It's not looking any better. And frankly, this is why people are saying that's the answer. I'm intrigued, though, is if Burnham isn't the answer, who is? Because this isn't happening on its own. There is concern out there about Keir Starmer as leader, and currently they're backing someone who can't replace him. But soon enough, someone will emerge.
Anarchy everywhere. Chris Hope, superb. And thanks again to my previous guest, Curtis Daly. Now, time for our latest Great British giveaway now, and it's our biggest prize to date, beg your pardon, worth over £104,000. That includes a 4-berth motorhome worth 74 grand and 30 grand in cool, hard, tax-free Wonga. It could be yours, and here's how.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Quick bit of feedback here from GB News viewer Glenn Westerman, who says, Martin, can you please stop calling Andy Burnham the King of the North? We're from Leeds and we can't stand him. Glenn Westerman, there we go. Thanks for your feedback. Now, still to come, data seen exclusively by GB News has revealed an astonishing 1,025% boom in asylum seekers who claim to be victims of modern slavery. Is that true? Or is it just the latest ruse to stay in Britain? Also, we have this.
My concerns, as I say, and they're serious concerns, are about the approach to the economy of the Reform Party and the approach on national security.
Boris Johnson has blasted Nigel Farage as a threat to national security, adding the Reform UK leader's stance on Vladimir Putin is, quote, extremely dangerous. Does Boris have a point? That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 3:26 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Boris Johnson, you remember that fella? Well, he is back, and he's made some extraordinary claims about Reform UK leader Nigel Farage.
My concerns, as I say, and they're serious concerns, are about the approach to the economy of the Reform Party and the approach on national security.
Let's now speak with the director at SEC Newgate and the former Conservative advisor, Ali Renison. Ali, a pleasure to have your company. Does Boris Johnson have a point, or is he still smarting from the fact that Nigel Farage just steamed into him about the so-called Boris wave on Monday?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different things at play here. Obviously, there is a little bit of jockeying position about who's going to be the best person to unite the right, if that's even possible in the UK. I think that obviously he's responding to some of the push from Reform to try and remind people that should Boris Johnson ride to the rescue of the Conservative Party, that actually, as they see it, he was responsible for an increase in immigration. But on the substantive question, I mean, I think Boris has a point to a point, in the sense that we have seen Nigel Farage in years past talk about how that what's happened in Ukraine has been triggered by the push from the European Union, and also he's shored up some of Donald Trump's own language around kind of that Zelensky didn't behave as he should, etc. The slight irony, of course, though, is that Boris has himself been spending the last sort of 6 to 12 months talking about how Trump is the right person to try and fix the conflict in Ukraine. So there's not a huge amount of difference between what Farage is saying to parrot some of Trump's view on this and what Boris is effectively supporting Donald Trump in doing on Ukraine.
Do you find it an astonishing state of affairs, Ali, that the Putin attack is being used by Ed Davey, it's being used by Sir Keir Starmer, and now it's being used by Boris Johnson, where Nigel Farage repeatedly said, years ago, he said he admired him for the leader he was then, but there's been no admiration or alliance with Putin since the invasion of Ukraine. Is this kind of archaeology, this exhumation of things said yesteryear, really as good as they've got?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, I think that is going back. There has been an evolution, should one might say, in sort of Farage and now sort of at the helm of Reform about what their views are. I mean, there is some, I think, skepticism about the amount of money, perhaps from their perspective, that the British state is willing to sort of funnel towards Ukraine. I think that there is probably some concerns there within Reform, but I think that certainly Farage has probably rode back from where he was, let's say, sort of 5 to 10 years ago, before Vladimir Putin went all out. He's talked about Putin being the aggressor, and I think that Boris is trying to dredge up old history to a point.
And Ali Renison, we know that Boris Johnson is the master of deflection. Look over here. There's something else to talk about. And the fact of the matter is he is deeply, I believe, stung by the fact that the reality of the Boris wave is now in full naked view. 1 million people came into the country after we voted to take back control. And I put it to you that Boris Johnson has come out of this exchange the worst of the two.
I think that Reform have certainly got in early with their soundbite about the Boris wave. I think it's aimed at making sure that, people don't forget that for all of the relative popularity as a sort of as a leader, so to speak, as a figurehead for the right and the Conservative Party at least, that there were things done under his leadership that actually weren't particularly conservative. So I think to some extent it's Reform getting out in front and Boris is responding. The question is what are Boris's ultimate leadership aims, and is he just trying to dodge the bullet, or is he trying to get in ahead of this to try and make a run down the line in the not too distant future?
Ali Renison, one final question to you. The other night I put it to Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg, is it over for Boris? And he said it's never over for Boris. Is there any way now the public are awake to the Boris wave that, as you said, Boris Johnson could come riding over the hill on that white horse to save the Conservatives and save the political right?
I think the question is when he wants to do it. Boris Johnson is not the kind of person who wants to lose. There's an interesting question similarly with Andy Burnham about does he want to ride to the rescue for Labour? Does Boris want to ride to the rescue the Conservatives if the reform wave is sweeping, or does he want to do it at a time perhaps when it's more likely to make an impact? So I think it remains to be seen, but ultimately it's very different compared to America, where you have one figurehead who's uniting the right at the some jockeying about who's going to do that in the UK.
Ali Renison, excellent guest. Please come back on the show. A pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much indeed for joining us today on GB News. Now, lots more still to come between now and 4 o'clock, including data seen exclusively by GB News has revealed an astonishing 1,025% boom in asylum seekers who claim to have been victims of modern slavery. Is our asylum system a total laughingstock? But first, here's your latest news headlines, and it's time for Katie Bowen.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 3:31 and breaking news this hour. The Prime Minister's head of communications, Steph Driver, has become the latest in a series of senior aides to leave Downing Street. Ms Driver said the Prime Minister's government had her unwavering support as she announced her departure today. Elsewhere, 2 more migrants have been removed to France under the government's partial returns deal, bringing the total so far to 6. The latest deportations involved an Afghan and a Somali. The first arrivals under the deal, a family of 3 with 1 young child, landed in Britain yesterday. Andy Burnham says Labour MPs have urged him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the leadership, but he insists he isn't plotting a return to Westminster. Cabinet Minister Steve Reid says the speculation is tittle-tattle.
Andy is committed to serving his full term as Mayor of Manchester, which concludes in 2028. I know he will want to work with the government.
The taxi driver who dropped off the Southport killer at the dance class where he murdered 3 children has told a public inquiry he regrets not calling the police sooner. Driver Gary Poland did not call emergency services until 50 minutes after hearing screams at the Heart Space, having picked up another fare and returned home first. And Jaguar Land Rover remains crippled by last month's cyber attack, with factories shut and losses topping 50 million a week. Ministers are weighing emergency measures to prop up suppliers at risk of collapse, as unions warn tens of thousands of jobs hang in the balance. And Denmark says a wave of drones that shut airports this week was a hybrid attack by a professional actor. The Prime Minister's called it the most severe strike yet on Danish infrastructure. EU leaders will meet tomorrow to discuss boosting drone defences. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Remaining mostly dry over the next couple of days, then a change as we head towards the weekend with outbreaks of rain starting to push their way in from the west. Now, the current picture is that we have high pressure situated to the east of the country. This will bring in a southeasterly flow towards this evening, dragging in more cloud at times, and also low pressure out to the west, waiting in the wings before we head through to the weekend. So clouds starting to push into parts of East Anglia, Sussex and Kent. At times this could drag in a shower. Also parts of Yorkshire and Lincolnshire could see some showers through the overnight period. Turning quite windy across western parts of Scotland too, a chance we could see some coastal gales. But across Northern Ireland, Wales, southwest England, plenty of clear skies and lighter winds. So it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning, and also some isolated frost at times. Heading our way over to Scotland first thing on Friday, and once again mostly dry, some patchy cloud in places, but some rather strong winds across any exposed coasts in the west. Fairly breezy around western coast of Northern Ireland too, but remaining mostly dry here, similar across northern parts of England. And across Wales, parts of the southwest, some isolated frost, some mist and fog, but things won't turn quite as chilly across parts of East Anglia and Sussex and Kent. More cloud pushing in through here. And as we head through the course of the day, this cloud will continue to push its way westwards, and once again we could see some showers associated with this. The best of the brightness will be across Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and southwest England. Also western Scotland will be fairly bright, but once again it will be quite windy here at times too. Temperatures won't be quite as high as we head into tomorrow, highs reaching around 16 to 17 degrees Celsius. Later into Friday evening, it won't turn quite as chilly, cloudier skies stopping too much frost developing also. And also we'll start to see some rain, some stronger winds begin to push in from the west. That leads to some unsettled weather for Saturday, also some rain and showers through Sunday, but then eventually turning brighter into next week.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. A road traffic incident has partially blocked the A90 northbound between Forfar Road and Claverhouse Road. Please approach with caution. There's an accident on the M60 clockwise between junction 8 and 9, leading to delays. In Hampshire, the M27 eastbound exit slip at junction 2 is closed due to an incident. Additionally, Northamptonshire's A14 westbound between junctions 22 and 13 in Thrapston is closed due to a vehicle fire. And on the trains, Greater Anglia services between Colchester and Ipswich are experiencing disruptions, while Northern has buses replacing trains between Corkicle and Whitehaven. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. Time is 3:37. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Home Office was refused permission to appeal against a temporary injunction that blocked an Eritrean from being removed to France as part of the government's so-called one-in, one-out deal. The man argues he shouldn't be deported due to claims of modern slavery. However, the reason is part of a growing trend with modern slavery claims soaring by over 1,000% in the last 11 years. And that's data from our friends at Stand for Our Sovereignty, seen exclusively by GB News. To go through these shocking claims now, I'm joined in the studio by the Director of Communications at the Campaign for Independent Britain and also, of course, from Stand Up for Our Sovereignty, Ben Phillips. Ben, another cracking exclusive. Thank you very much for giving it to us here at GB News. The numbers are simply eye-watering and the trend has gone through the roof. Tell us more.
It has. Thank you, Martin. Well, again, the data that we've got begins in 2014, for which the Home Office has reliable figures. That's the earliest that they go back to, all the way up to 2025. And you can see on the chart, as I dare say your viewers can as well, it has gone through the roof from 506 to over 5,600. That is an increase of over, as you say, 1,000%. It is simply incredible.
Now, Ben Phillips, that is a ski slope and it's going in the wrong direction. That is a ski slope into Britain. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people pouring in. And it's obviously being used right until this day, and it's foiling the Home Office, it's foiling the Home Secretary, it's foiling Shabana Mahmood. And tell us, when we hear about modern slavery, it conjures up images of Africa, of nations like that. But that's not the case, is it? Where are people claiming to be slaves?
Well, indeed. We've got a chart, Martin. The top 20, out of the top 20 from whom these people claim to be victims of slavery, 7, I beg your pardon, come from the European Union.
7?
Including France and Germany. Indeed, France is 5th on the table.
So Ben Phillips, look at that on our screens there.
Yeah.
Asylum seekers claiming to be victims of modern slavery in France.
That's right.
In Greece. In Belgium, in Italy, in Germany. Is it truly the case? And I believe there are 130 countries in total where people have claimed to be the victims of modern slavery. Is it truly the case that people have come from war-torn countries and then they're suddenly claiming to be victims of slavery in France, and we're to believe that that's the case?
Can you believe it? And not only that, Martin, of course, but we now have a treaty with France to send back our illegals to France. Are we really sending them back to a country that has a record of migrant slavery?
The Home Office has got a huge problem. The Home Secretary has got a huge problem. Now, to be fair, they have seen that this is a huge problem, and there has been some clampdown on this. Tell us about that.
Well, indeed. To be fair, such was the outrage among the general public after 2023 that the Home Office belatedly did get on top of it. So after 2023, the approvals drop off dramatically. From April to June of 2025, for example, it was a 58% approval rate.
But before that, it was 90%. So 9 out of 10 people claiming to be victims of modern slavery were granted the right to remain. Here you go, stay in Britain and tickety-boo. Now they've clamped down to a mere 58%. So almost 6 in 10 people still get away with it. Shabana Mahmood has promised to clamp down. It's a massive, massive problem. Do you think they can solve it?
Well, history would say not. I mean, when you look at their assessment process, they go from reasonable grounds to conclusive grounds, and they do so on a balance of probabilities. That's the Home Office's own words, which I think is Home Office speak for guesswork, quite honestly.
And Ben Phillips, it's also worth pointing out that, again, victims of slavery conjures up women chained to radiators. It's actually 74% of the victims are men,
yes,
and 26% are female.
Yeah.
So, again, it mirrors exactly the figures that we see rocking up on small boats.
Yeah, on the illegal boats, migrants. Exactly, Martin. There is a pattern here. And the figures we are quoting in this report refer to all migrants, not only boat migrants. But, yes, you're absolutely right.
Ben Phillips, it's astonishing data. And I put it to you again, there could be every case that their claims are legitimate. We're having that debate later in the show, a good head-to-head. Is this genuine, or is it simply the latest route to remain in Britain? Ben Phillips, always great food for thought. Thank you for our friends at Stand for Our Sovereignty. A pleasure to have you in the studio in Westminster. Now for more reaction to Andy Burnham's claims that Labour MPs are urging him to oust Keir Starmer as Prime Minister, let's go now to GB News reporter Anna Riley, who is there for us on the streets of Manchester. Anna Riley, so Andy Burnham hoving into view, haunting Sir Keir Starmer from there up north. But what are people telling you on the streets of Manchester? Is he a viable, credible alternative, or actually has he done not really that much for Manchester?
Good afternoon, Martin. Well, speaking to people here, they've been calling Andy Burnham the King of the North. A lot of positive responses that we've got from the majority of people that have spoken to us. Of course, he was first elected here in 2017 as Mayor of Greater Manchester, covering the 10 boroughs here in Manchester. Re-elected again in May 2021, and then before that, he was MP for 16 years from 2001 for Lee. So he's certainly got the votes in this area, and speaking to people here in Manchester as well, they said they were pleased about what he's done for the transport network. You may be able to see the trams behind us as well, the B network of buses, trying to do for education as well, trying to boost housing. Of course, as well, if he was potentially to do a leadership bid, he said nationally he would be looking at a pot of around £40 million to build more council houses. He said that he would reduce tax for those that are on lower incomes, maybe put it up by around 50p for people on higher incomes, and to do maybe a mansion tax for those living in London and the South East on properties that are worth more money. So that's what he'd say do nationally. Speaking to people here on the ground, though, I asked them, what do you think of Andy Burnham and what do you think of this bid for him to potentially lead the Labour Party? This is what they told me.
What I know about him, I'm not really impressed. I'm not impressed with the Labour government, full stop. I think Keir Starmer's, he's not for the British people anyway, as far as I'm concerned.
If he's going to run for Prime Minister, he better have a Mental Health Act and Prison Penal Code of appeal up and running, fairness and transparency coming.
But what do you make to him as a mayor?
He's fine by me. If he wants to become PM, by all means, go do so.
I'm a massive fan of his ambition. I've tracked his quite a while now, and I think we look around what he's done for Manchester as a place, become the beacon of the north and almost combating London, taking the good aspects away from London, bringing it to Manchester. I'm all for it.
He's got to be better than our current leader, I'm afraid. This is a government of just tax. Where is the entrepreneurship? Where is the business growth? They're not allowing any of that. Just tax, 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 tax.
So that's the views of people here in Manchester on Andy Burnham, and certainly in the polls as well, people nationally have been saying they might be more inclined to vote for Labour if he was leader. But certainly with the Labour conference coming up, it could well have put the cat among the pigeons, so we'll see what happens at that conference and watch this space as to that leadership contest.
Thank you very much, Anna Riley. I would call that a definition of a mixed bag on the streets there for Andy Burnham on the streets of Manchester. My old stomping ground, I was there when it was the epicentre of club music and fashion, the Manchester years. I live to tell the tale. Thank you very much, Anna Riley. Now we've got some breaking news for you now, and it's a biggie. Listen to this. It is understood that all British adults will soon be required to have a digital ID card under new government plans. Now, this is believed to be part of Sir Keir Starmer's attempts to clamp down on illegal immigration. That will spark a huge debate. Breaking news. It's understood that digital ID will be required for all British adults because the government can't control our borders. Wow. What do you make of that? Get in touch. GBNews at gbviews@gbnews.com. We're sure to cover that later on in the show. But before that, if you're in search of some holiday sun, then here is the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heaviest and most thundery rain that's been affecting parts of Central Europe through recent days, that's now starting to ease. But nonetheless, a fair few showers across parts of Greece and nearby countries as we go through Friday. A few showery bursts still across Italy, could still be quite heavy towards the north. Meanwhile, further west across much of Spain and Portugal, it's largely fine, albeit with a few showery bursts pushing towards Madeira and the Canary Islands. Lots of fine weather for most of us through into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Today's some joyous news. We're all very happy around the GB News studios, and that is because Emily Carver and Patrick Christie's have announced the birth of their baby son.
Yes, and what a name it is. George Alexander Peter Christie's was born at 5:26 a.m. on Friday morning. Both mother and baby are doing well, and I think he's a baby Patrick. He's a mini Patrick. Look at his little face.
Yeah.
So cute. It's lovely news, isn't it?
Oh,
And a lovely name.
Well, he's got a lot of names. It's a long name.
4 names, but a solid, strong name. George Alexander Peter Christie.
How many middle names have you got?
Huh?
How many middle names have you got?
None.
Have you not got any middle names?
I'm playing Eamon Holmes.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Ellie, have you got
Do you not
middle
have a
names?
confirmation name? One you threw in yourself?
Well, I do. You did have.
I've got one. May.
Oh, have you?
What?
M-A-E. May.
Oh, right. That's different. I had an Aunt May.
Yeah. It's an Irish name, isn't it? Yeah. What about you? What have you got?
Michael.
Very
Paul
nice. very
Michael,
strong.
which I was very excited about because it's like Paul Michael Glaser and Starsky and Hutch. So I used to run around thinking, yeah, it's not bad, is it?
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, my youngest son, Patrick and Emily's child is Alexander, is his second name. And my son has this name, Alexander. Well, it was supposed to be his main name. But then my wife, on her birthbed, realised, she said, "You wouldn't be calling this child after some football manager, would you?"
She clocked on.
And I what? So she wouldn't allow Alexander to be his main
You were
name.
rumbled.
Was it named after a certain football manager?
It was indeed.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's funny.
Didn't get anywhere with that, but there we go.
Nice try, though.
Maybe you could get a boy dog.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 4. A reminder of that huge breaking news story just dropped in the last few moments. It is this. It's understood that all British adults will soon be required to have a digital ID card under new government plans. And this is believed to be part of Sir Keir Starmer's attempts to clamp down on illegal immigration. Now, this has been in the offing for a long time. It's been floated out there for many, many months. We understood this was going to be tabled perhaps as soon as the Labour Party conference this weekend. Well, the news has just dropped. Perhaps that's the intention of the government. A huge debate will ensue. Should every British citizen be forced to carry digital ID? Remember, pioneered by the likes of Tony Blair during COVID lockdowns, a show us your paper society, because the government can't control our borders? Or is that a price worth paying? We simply don't know how many people are here illegally. We don't know where they come from. Having an ID to get a bank account, to be able to work for them so they can't disappear into the black economy, is that a price you think is worth paying? So you have to show your papers potentially everywhere. It's a huge breaking news story. Please get in touch with your thoughts. Now, meanwhile, railway enthusiasts are gearing up for commemorative events this weekend to mark 200 years of railways in Britain. And one family have been working on the tracks since the very, very beginning. And a member of that family joins me now. It's Mike Lamport. Mike, welcome to the show. It's fair to say you've got the railway running right through your DNA. 200 years of family involvement. It's magnificent. Tell us more.
Thank you, Martin. Good afternoon. Yes, 200 years of railways and 179 years of my family on the railways. So that's quite a record. We have looked out through with my Railway 200 colleagues to see if there's another family out there. Obviously, they'd have to be in the UK because Britain brought railways to the world, but we still haven't found anyone to beat our 1846 to 2025 and counting record.
And Mike, tell us about the involvement in those early days of steam railways. Of course, right at the beginning, Britain, a pioneer on the global stage.
Yes, indeed, Martin. This is the weekend, the one we've all been waiting for. This is the actual 200th anniversary, because on the 27th of September 1825, the Stockton and Darlington Railway ran the world's first passenger train. Admittedly, it was basically a coal train with people in it and one carriage, but it was the world's first passenger train, and that spawned everything we now see around the world's railways. And many of them, of course, were actually built by British engineers and operated initially by British companies. But that spawned the age of steam. And of course, we're now in the age of electric trains. But steam, we have a romance for steam. And even though it's supposed to have died back in 1968, it was only gone 10 years and it was back again. And we still enjoy it. All of us, I think, enjoy a steam train ride or even watching a steam train to this day.
Mike Lamport, looking at the pictures on the screen now of those epic steam trains steaming across our countryside. I mean, that cannot fail to raise the heartbeat of every proud Britishman watching that. It just is magnificent. And these days, Mike, I'm just grateful that a train shows up on time.
Well, of course, that's one of the good things that keeps journalists like yourself in business, isn't it, Martin? The good old curly sandwich, and the late train. When I worked in Newcastle, one of the local reporters on the local paper used to ring me first thing every morning as the BRPR man and say, "What's it going to be this morning, Mike? Platform pandemonium or commuter chaos?" And, you know, that's the world I lived in, Martin.
Mike Lamport, I have to thank you for joining us today. All that rich heritage in your brain, in your DNA there. Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us, Mike Lamport. Now, coming up, could Andy Burnham take on Keir Starmer in a Labour leadership race? And also next, digital ID for every British citizen to help control illegal immigration. Is that a price worth paying? It's a huge breaking news story. Get in touch. But first, it's time for your weather, and here's On a Critic.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Remaining mostly dry over the next couple of days, then a change as we head towards the weekend with outbreaks of rain starting to push their way in from the west. Now, the current picture is that we have high pressure situated to the east of the country. This will bring in a southeasterly flow towards this evening, dragging in more cloud at times, and also low pressure out to the west, waiting in the wings before we head through to the weekend. So clouds starting to push into parts of East Anglia, Sussex and Kent. At times this could drag in a shower. Also parts of Yorkshire and Lincolnshire could see some showers through the overnight period. Turning quite windy across western parts of Scotland too, a chance we could see some coastal gales. But across Northern Ireland, Wales, southwest England, plenty of clear skies and lighter winds. So it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning and also some isolated frost at times. Heading our way over to Scotland first thing on Friday, and once again mostly dry, some patchy cloud in places, but some rather strong winds across any exposed coasts in the west. Fairly breezy around western coast of Northern Ireland too, but remaining mostly dry here, similar across northern parts of England. And across Wales, parts of the southwest, some isolated frost, some mist and fog, but things won't turn quite as chilly across parts of East Anglia and Sussex and Kent. More cloud pushing in through here. And as we head through the course of the day, this cloud will continue to push its way westwards, and once again we could see some showers associated with this. The best of the brightness will be across Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and southwest England. Also western Scotland will be fairly bright, but once again it will be quite windy here at times too. Temperatures won't be quite as high as we head into tomorrow, highs reaching around 16 to 17 degrees Celsius. Later into Friday evening, it won't turn quite as chilly, cloudier skies stopping too much frost developing also. And also we'll start to see some rain, some stronger winds begin to push in from the west. That leads to some unsettled weather for Saturday, also some rain and showers through Sunday, but then eventually turning brighter into next week.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. An incident has forced the closure of the A76 near Carron Bridge. Drivers should follow the designated diversion route and anticipate delays. On the M56 westbound, between junctions 6 and 7, a collision has led to the closure of 3 lanes, resulting in significant congestion. In Northamptonshire, a vehicle fire has necessitated the closure of lanes on the A14 westbound, affecting traffic flow between junctions 22 and 13. Train commuters should expect disruptions on the Great Northern Line, impacting services from London to Stevenage, as well as Greater Anglia routes operating between Colchester and Ipswich. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Burnham Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK with all the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. And here's what's coming on today's action-packed show. Breaking news in this past hour. All British adults are reportedly to be issued with digital ID cards under plans by Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. They claim to help tackle illegal immigration. The Prime Minister is expected to announce as early as tomorrow his backing in principle for a so-called Brit card designed to combat illegal migrants working in the black economy. A huge story we're debating throughout the rest of the show. And Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham has given his clearest hint yet. He is gunning to be Labour's next leader, and it sparked a civil war in the party. Keir Starmer loyalists have blasted Burnham, claiming his high-tax, high-spend approach will make him Labour's Liz Truss. And have all the latest on this developing story. And meanwhile, that man, Boris Johnson, well, he's back again.
My concerns, as I say, and they're serious concerns, are about the approach to the economy of the Reform Party and the approach on our national security.
Boris Johnson has blasted Nigel Farage as a threat to national security, adding the Reform UK leader's stance on Vladimir Putin is extremely dangerous. Does Boris have a point, or is he merely bitter about Mr Farage slamming him this week for the Boris wave? And also coming up, are the Falkland Islands once again under threat?
Over the Malvinas, South Georgia, South Sandwich Islands and the surrounding maritime areas that continue to be illegally occupied.
Bloke needs a haircut. At the United Nations yesterday, the Argentinian president set his sights firmly on reclaiming the Falkland Islands. He claimed they were illegally occupied by Britain and said Argentina taking them back was legitimate. Well, I'll be joined on today's show by the Falklands hero Simon Weston to get his choice thoughts, and that's all coming up in your next hour. Huge breaking news in these past few moments. The Labour Party is reportedly set to be introducing a so-called Brit card, mandatory digital ID for all British citizens to help them, they claim, control illegal immigration. But I put it to you, is that a price worth paying for everybody's liberty? Has this got echoes of digital IDs, COVID passports, ushered in, willed in by Tony Blair back in the time of COVID lockdowns? Or is this a price worth paying to try and control those working illegally on the black market who have no right to be here? This is going to be a huge debate over the coming days. Get in touch. I'm desperate to know your thoughts. The way to do that is gbnews.com/your say. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Katie Bowen.
Martin, thank you and good afternoon. The headlines at 4:03. It's been widely reported that every adult in Britain will require a new government-issued digital ID card under plans to be set out by Sir Keir Starmer. According to the Times newspaper, the Prime Minister is expected to announce the move in a bid to tackle illegal immigration. Reported plans for what's being called a Brit card will be subject to consultation and will reportedly require legislation. Under the proposal, anyone starting a new job would be required to show the digital ID, which would then be automatically checked against a central database of those entitled to work in the UK. We'll bring you more on those reports as we get it. Elsewhere today, 2 more migrants have been removed to France under the government's partial returns deal, bringing the total so far to 6. The latest deportations involved an Afghan and a Somali, following returns last week of people from Iran, Eritrea, India and Afghanistan. The pilot scheme, agreed with France in July, allows small boat arrivals to be detained and sent back across the Channel in exchange for the same number approved through the safe and legal routes. The first arrivals under the deal, a family of 3 with a young child, landed in Britain yesterday. It comes as the Home Office was refused permission to appeal a ruling granting an Eritrean man a temporary block on his deportation. And breaking news this hour, the Prime Minister's head of communications, Steph Driver, has become the latest in a series of senior aides to leave Downing Street. Ms Driver said the Prime Minister's government had her unwavering support as she announced her departure today. Sir Keir Starmer has described her as a loyal and valued member of his team for almost 5 years. Her resignation comes just over a week since another key figure, Paul Ovenden, quit as the Prime Minister's Director of Political Strategy. James Lyons, Number 10's former Director of Communications for Strategy, also left earlier this month. Andy Burnham says Labour MPs have urged him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the party leadership, but insists he isn't plotting a return to Westminster. The Greater Manchester Mayor says he's ready to play any role as Labour faces what he calls an existential threat. Burnham defended his record, saying he'd been working behind the scenes on the Hillsborough law. Chancellor Rachel Reeves said that the Prime Minister is focused on delivering real change.
Well, we've seen this film a few times before. When Keir ran for the leadership, people said that Labour couldn't come back from the catastrophic defeat at the 2019 election. Then people said, you know, he couldn't overturn that huge Conservative majority. He won a landslide victory just over a year ago, and Keir and the whole government are focusing on the change that the country voted for, including putting the money into communities like this one in Woodside. Real change, making a difference to people's lives. And in the same way that this government are delivering change, I know that Andy is focused on delivering change in Greater Manchester.
The taxi driver who dropped off the Southport killer at the dance class where he murdered 3 children has told a public inquiry he regrets not calling the police sooner. Driver Gary Poland did not call emergency services until 50 minutes after hearing screams at the Heart space, having picked up another fare and returned home first. Giving evidence to the Southport inquiry today, Mr Poland said he threatened to call police when Rudder ignored his requests to pay, but thought he had gone to get money when he went into the building where the Taylor Swift dance class was being held. He added that he thought there was a gunman and that he could be a target. Rudder murdered Elsie Stankham, BB King and Alice De Silva Aguiar and attempted to murder 10 others in the attack in July last year. And former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been jailed to 5 years in jail for criminal conspiracy over millions in illicit funds from Libya's Gaddafi. The Paris court cleared him of corruption and illegal campaign financing, but said he let aides seek financial support for his 2007 campaign. The 70-year-old insists the case is politically motivated, but the ruling means he faces prison even if he appeals. He was also fined €100,000. Those are the latest GBNews headlines. Let's get a quick look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Here's a quick snapshot of today's markets. The pound will buy you $1.3385 and €1.1437. The price of gold is £2,786.24 per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,217 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Thank you, Katie. And a reminder to you viewers out there of that huge breaking news story. It's been reported that all British adults will be soon be required to carry a mandatory digital ID card under new government plans. Now, this is believed to be part of Sir Keir Starmer's attempts to clamp down on illegal immigration, and we're expecting this could be announced as soon as tomorrow, of course, ahead of the forthcoming Labour Party conference. Now, to discuss this huge breaking news story, I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' political editor Chris Hope, the commentator Dominic Moffat, and also the former Conservative Party chairman who's recently joined Reform UK, Sir Jake Berry. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Chris, I'm going to start with you. This idea has been floated by the Labour Party for months and months and months. It's been floated in the past. Tony Blair was a huge fan during the COVID lockdowns. Of course, a show us your papers culture. A lot of Brits will be dead against this. This time, of course, they're wrapping it in the sugar coating of it's our last attempt to control illegal immigration. A lot of people will say, Chris, well, control the borders. Is this a sledgehammer to crack a nut?
You might think that because people who live far away from the coast of England may wonder why their ID will need to be checked because of a government failure at the borders or the last government's failure to stop legal migration when it had the chance to because of Brexit. But I can confirm that the Keir Starmer will announce at the Labour Party conference that all adults will be required, possibly, to have digital ID cards. This is a so-called Brit card, we're told here, designed to combat illegal migrants working in the black economy, an issue raised by Emmanuel Macron when he came over and gave that speech. They will be announcing this at the Labour conference. This will take money back to civil liberties concerns. It will worry millions of pensioners who don't have a smartphone, who live off-grid, and will wonder why on earth they are being told to prove who they are because the government can't control the borders. This will be a big, big row breaking this weekend.
I think this is going to be a huge, huge debate. I'm already being contacted by people who are saying this is the hill they're prepared to die on in terms of getting out and marching against the government. A lot of people, Chris, have very, very painful memories of COVID lockdowns when COVID passports were severely on the agenda. They were brought in countries like Israel, they're brought in Australia. You had to show your digital ID to go to a synagogue, to go to a supermarket, to go to a library, to get your basic food and provisions for the day. Many people feel this is the thin end of the wedge. It could lead to a totalitarian future.
Britain is one of the few countries in Europe without a national ID card system. Critics say it allows the black market to flourish, and that's why it's been brought in. I remember vividly back in the mid-noughties when Jackie Smith, the Home Secretary, looked at this under Labour and getting a sample credit card to show. It looked a bit like, frankly, the modern-day driver's licence. But the similar battles then, and this will start again. Why on earth? Again, it's a policy failure by the government, and the way of dealing with that is piling up issues and regulation for the rest of us. It will not be popular amongst some people, but if it helps them tackle the small boats, Martin, is it worth doing?
That's the huge question. Let's bring in my panel now. I'm joined, of course, by Sir Jake Berry and Dominic Moffat. Sir Jake, I'll start with you, if I could. Is this a price worth paying for the greater public to control our borders?
No, absolutely not. So the question I ask myself is twofold. Number one, why should I have to change the way I live every single day of the week to be stopped by police, which we know have been subject to massive overreach in terms of taking civil liberties away from people, both during COVID, but actually much more recently with arresting people for saying hurty things on the internet, stopped by the police and in a sort of, you know, Germany circa 1940 told to show my papers on the streets. Why should I be forced to do that? Because this government has failed to grip the issues of borders. This is fundamentally changing the way we live our life in Britain. And the real disgrace is to call it a Brit card when it's destroying so much of what matters to us here in the country. That's the first issue. The second issue is I fundamentally do not trust this government with my data. Now, people will say, of course, well, you give information to Facebook, you give information to other online. Yeah, they don't let anyone steal it because if they don't hold it, they don't have a business. The government is terrible at keeping our data safe. I don't trust them with my data. It will lead to wholesale problems in terms of your own data security. This is wrong for Britain. It's the wrong time. It's the wrong policy. And I'm sorry, if Starmer thinks this may be part of a new Keir Starmer reset for the Labour Party conference, he is proving himself once again tin-eared and not on the side of ordinary working people in this country.
Dominic Moffat, you're rolling your eyes at quite a lot of that there. Tell us why you think this is a good idea.
Well, I'm interested to hear GB News describing illegal migration as a nut. I think that the attention it's given
don't
on
get
this
bogged
channel...
down in semantics. Get to the issue.
The point I'm making
why
is that this is clearly a very
everybody in Britain
significant
have
issue.
to pay the price because the government control our blooming borders?
Well, that's the point. We've talked about this government not controlling the borders. What about the 10 years before when there was a different government which had not just illegal immigration, but fully legal migration, which allowed millions of people into the UK. 500,000 people a year were legally allowed into the UK by the last government.
Keir Starmer was elected saying he'd smash the guns. What's happened to the numbers? They've gone up.
He's taking the action required to smash the guns.
1,000 people came into the country in one day this week.
Keir Starmer and this Labour government so-called is not going to fix that. Required to smash
it's not working.
Well, they haven't done it yet. I don't know if you're aware of this.
Well,
this is what they're doing.
They've had 14 months.
That's what these ID cards are for. It's to smash those criminal gangs that you're talking about.
Do you think criminals will carry
The
this?
one interesting thing you did say, Jake, is you talked about Labour Party conference, and it will be interesting to see how this policy goes down at Labour Party conference. This is not red meat for the Labour Party membership.
So why do it?
Keir Starmer's popularity at the moment suggests to me...
If it's not even popular...
He wants to stop the boat. That's why he's doing it.
So stop the boat.
But the question is, they can't, right? They aren't doing it. This is the way of doing it, but is imposing imposition on Britons around the country. Millions of Brits miles away from the coast who may not be troubled by this issue are going to feel that.
Well, let me put this to you, Chris. It's already a criminal offence to employ an asylum seeker. Currently, they have to, if someone comes to work for you, they have to show you a photo ID, whether it be a passport or a driving licence, and prove their national insurance number. And if you don't have that and the government come knocking on your door, you have committed a crime, subject to massive fines, up to £50,000. Why will it stop people working if that photo ID is suddenly... another different card?
Yeah,
this will not stop asylum seekers working. It is about controlling the British population. It is completely wrong.
OK, Dominic Moffat, let's give you a fair say here. The point is, people are coming over in dinghies, they're chucking their ID into the channel. We know that's happening. We don't know how many people are here. That's well over 1 million by even a Conservative estimate. They're already working in the illegal economy. How on earth can you give ID to people who are just vanished?
I'm not sure that's how an ID card works. I think the point is these people won't have ID cards.
So how will you give them one when they're already in the black economy working illegally? They're persona non grata already.
They're not going to get one because that's the point. You won't have an ID card if you're not legally allowed to work.
So what happens next?
People work already. And it's a criminal offence to employ them.
You won't be able to show the ID card.
So you don't think that unscrupulous people who work in barber shops or car washes won't just continue to flout the law? They are now.
Well, I'm sure some of them will, but this is yet another arsenal that the government is giving itself to fight illegal migration. And
the room fell silent on that point. Because patently and clearly and provably, this government, and to be fair, the previous government, haven't controlled legal immigration. And rather than targeting, you know, those who are breaking the law, they're going for law-abiding citizens and sacrificing their liberty.
I think it's a really interesting step that they've clearly taken the decision quite a while ago. This has not just been cooked up in the last couple of days. Yes. This is clearly a long-term
Tony Blair's been working on it for decades.
Well, as was mentioned earlier, it's interesting that there's quite a lot of Tony Blair Institute relationship with the government, and I'm sure that they've had a hand in this. And look, there was a lot of opposition to it back in the noughties, and it'll be interesting to see what the country does. There's not a strong libertarian streak in the PLP, in the Parliamentary Labour Party.
Yeah, but there is outside of it.
So I'm not sure at Labour Party conference we will see a significant opposition to this. But what there is in the country is a demand to do something about illegal migration, and this is the government yet again taking action to stop it.
I wonder if that's the case.
It's not.
We saw. Did we not? Are people so short-sighted and have such a short memory? They don't remember the huge backlash to COVID lockdowns. Many people at the time said, "I will never be locked down again by any government ever." And now they're being expected to basically surrender to something which may have future ramifications. We don't know how that could be used. Your ID could be closed down to stop you, I don't know, eating red meat, going to the pub, buying cigarettes, anything. It could go anywhere. That's what people are scared about.
I think that might be slightly alarmist.
Do you reckon?
Yes. And I'm not sure your viewers are going to benefit from you saying that it'll be used to stop people eating red meat.
You don't think, potentially in the future, that this could go in the right direction of like a Chinese social credit system? You don't think that could happen?
No, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well, that's reassuring to hear. But I wonder if people actually out there will believe that, Jake.
Well, I mean, look, this government, and I blame COVID for this, and by government I mean the government itself rather than political party, is addicted to telling us what to do. And, you know, this is just feeding that addiction. And this whole thing about immigration, it is a Trojan horse. There has been a long-term programme in the civil service to force 70 million people here in Britain to carry a digital ID card, linking it to immigration. Previously, when people wanted to introduce it, it was linked to COVID. Now it's linked to immigration. It's a Trojan horse to track us from the cradle to the grave. And what I'd say to people out there, GB News viewers, true patriots, is go out in the channel, maybe borrow Angela Rayner's inflatable dinghy that she was photographed in the summer, get your digital ID, throw it away. We must resist this. It is a disgraceful attempt to control every part of our lives.
Is this Reform Party policy, Jake Berry?
No, this is Jake Berry policy.
No, but you're a member of the Reform Party.
Nigel Farage is already on the record as saying that he opposed the digital ID. I think he's right.
You got some more news for us?
That's the best I can get so far. We're trying to find out more about it. It could be announced as soon as tomorrow. Well, the timing is rapidly getting...
Keir Starmer decides to reset his premiership by doing something really unpopular. It's going well.
Trying to confirm timing so far, Martin.
OK, gentlemen, thank you very, very much, Dominic and Sir Jake, and, of course, Chris. We've got some live pictures now on our screen. And it's the US President Donald Trump is set to host Turkey's President Erdogan at the White House, where they're expected to conclude trade and military agreements. Of course, the President of Turkey, the latest in a long list of people to go through those famous doors. Plenty to talk about. Of course, United Nations at the summit earlier this week, Donald Trump was saying Europe is dying. It's going to hell. It's being destroyed by uncontrolled immigration. And, of course, President Erdogan will see himself as something of an outsider in that conversation. Might have quite a lot in common with President Trump, apart from maybe the recent departure of opinion on Vladimir Putin. Erdogan seen as pro-Putin in this mix. It's going to be a fascinating meeting. To be a fly on that wall, we'll bring it to you as it happens. Now, still to come, we've also got some of this.
Over the Malvinas, South Georgia, South Sandwich Islands and the surrounding maritime areas that continue to be illegally occupied.
At the United Nations yesterday, the big-haired Argentinian president set his sights firmly on reclaiming the Falkland Islands. He claimed they were illegally occupied by Britain and said Argentina taking them back was legitimate. We'll be discussing this and also next. Earlier this week, Donald Trump said that Europe was going to hell. On today's show, I'll be joined by the editor of the Sunday Telegraph, who squarely blames its leaders, saying Sir Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Ursula von der Leyen, they are all political pygmies. That's next with me on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. It is 4:24 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, has Europe become a laughingstock? In fact, is it the laughingstock of the world? Well, in an eviscerating article for The Telegraph, Alistair Heath, the editor of the Sunday Telegraph, has described the leaders of the world as NPCs, of course, more commonly known as non-player characters, interchangeable in their incompetence, their cowardice and a lack of vision. Well, let's get further analysis. In the studio, I'm joined by the author of that excellent article, the editor at the Sunday Telegraph, Alistair Heath. Alistair, I read this article very early this morning. I've got to say, it was a sombre read, but it really cut to the point. And something that leapt out to me was you pinned this incompetence on our leaders. Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, Ursula von der Leyen are all political pygmies.
Yes, I mean, that's the sadness of Europe today, right? We're a very rich continent still, but we are a continent in complete decline. And here I'm talking about Europe in a non-Brexity way. I'm talking about Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Spain. I'm talking about Western Europe. And it's just really pathetic how 3.5 years after the start of the Ukraine war, for example, we still haven't even begun to rearm ourselves, right? I mean, that's just a striking observation. And we've done nothing to reform our economies. Our culture is in decline, our crime is elevated, our education system is also in decline. Things are all basically going very, very wrong.
And also, this obviously was pegged, I'm assuming, on the eviscerating speech that Donald Trump gave at the United Nations, where he said, your countries are going to hell, the European continent is rotting from within. Of course, he was talking about illegal immigration, uncontrolled immigration.
Yes, exactly. So I think Trump was broadly right, and I think he delivered a shocking message. And there were a lot of European leaders in the audience, and they were all just stunned. They had to listen to this because in their heart of hearts, they must have known that it is true. You know, Europe is a great civilization, but it's a civilization in decline, and our leadership class is just not the right category of people to actually try and reverse all of these problems. We're just simply not doing anything about it. And take the economy, right? We're about to be eaten alive by AI. And in America, they've got the greatest tech companies in the world, the greatest banks in the world. What do we have? Right, we're falling behind in virtually every area of industrial production, of services, of technology, of science, even of higher education. We are a continent mired in decline. And, you know, we all know about the problems in Britain. We know that in my opinion, Keir Starmer is an inadequate leader, and I suspect he won't be our Prime Minister for that much longer when you look at everything that's going on in the Labour Party. But the point is, we are not the only ones. The situation in France is, if anything, even worse. Their national debt is even higher than ours. Their budget deficit is also out of control. Their crime's out of control. They've got massive problems with immigration. Go to Germany. They've got a new leader, but I don't think he's up to it. He won't succeed. Italy. A lot of people think that Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister, is great. I don't think she's up to it either.
You also say that European nations have lost the world's respect, except as a shopping destination, a theme park or a finishing school. Withering.
Yes.
Absolutely withering.
Well, I mean, I'm afraid to say I think it's true. You know, if you're from the Middle East, if you're from the UAE, if you're American, if you're, you know, an emerging power in Latin America, in Southeast Asia, you don't think that Europe is the place to imitate. We're not the place to copy anymore. Right? We've turned our back on our traditional values. You know, we speak of human rights, but we betray our allies Israel and basically endorse what Hamas has done. We speak about prosperity, but, you know, our wages are sliding. Our populations are turning against capitalism. We talk about innovation. We can't innovate anymore.
Alice Heath, is there a way out of this hole?
I think there is, but it's a very tricky one. It's basically to hope that we end up with a new generation of politicians, a new Churchill. For example, you know, Britain needs a new political class. France needs a new political class. Germany needs a new political class. New leadership, new ideas, and especially return to traditional Western values.
Alice Heath, an excellent article, supremely thought-provoking. Thanks for joining me today in Westminster to share it with us. Superb stuff, Alice Heath. Now, a quick reminder, let's go to some live pictures of the US President Donald Trump is set to host Turkey's President Erdogan at the White House shortly, where, of course, they're expected to conclude trade and military agreements. And let's go now to our man out there, Ben Leo, GBNews presenter Ben Leo, live from Washington, D.C. Ben Leo, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. This is another huge leader going through those fabled doors. What might happen next? All eyes on you.
Yeah, hello, Martin. I was just listening to your conversation previously, first of all, about digital ID. I mean, I was completely aghast by it because they're talking about stopping illegal migration. Well, if you want tips on how to stop illegal migration, Great Britain, Keir Starmer, ask the gentleman who occupies the White House behind here. If you follow me quickly, Erdogan's arrival has sparked a massive security presence. So just as a bit of colour, this fencing normally isn't here. It looks like prison fencing, but this is the President's Park, where you can go and sit, enjoy a nice coffee or something. They've erected all this week for Erdogan's visit, and you cannot get close to the White House at all if you're a normal punter. Of course, we have press passes, so we'll hop over there fairly shortly. But behind here, the fence is the White House itself. Erdogan will arrive imminently, and order of the day, Martin, is F-35 fighter jets. So, as some background, in 2020, it was President Trump himself who kicked Erdogan out the F-35 programme. So, NATO countries could purchase F-35s from defence contractor Lockheed Martin, but Turkey, back in 2020, they purchased a load of missiles from Russia, breaking the rules of NATO, and they were kicked out the F-35 programme, and they've not been allowed to buy those fighter jets since. Today, in the White House, Erdogan, President Trump, they'll sit down in the Oval Office, and Turkey will be desperate for President Donald Trump to drop those sanctions on the F-35s. We hear it's going to happen, so Turkey will be allowed to buy those jets again from Lockheed Martin. There's also big trade deals as well. Turkey buying lots of jets, 747s from the likes of Boeing, and also Eurofighter jets as well, and F-16 fighter jets. So Turkey spending the money, really trying to bolster their defence capabilities, and it comes off the back of the situation in Israel and Syria as well. Israel is a contentious issue, actually. If they can agree on the F-35s, the one thing they won't agree on is Israel, because President Trump President Erdogan saying at the UN this week that anybody who supports Israel is aiding and abetting genocide. Of course, that goes against the White House's stance currently on Israel, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying that people such as Erdogan can say whatever the hell they want about Israel. When they want something, though, they'll come running to the White House, as we're seeing today with Turkey, begging for those F-35s.
OK, Ben Leo, thank you there. Our man on the ground inside that security perimeter. We'll come back to you, of course, when the President holds interview. Ben Leo, thank you there for joining us live from the White House in Washington, D.C. Now, loads more still to come between now and 5 o'clock, including at the United Nations yesterday. The Argentinian president set his sights firmly on reclaiming the Falkland Islands. He claimed they were illegally occupied by Britain, and he said that Argentina taking them back was legitimate. Well, we'll see about that. That's next. But first, here's your latest news headlines, and it's Katie Bowen.
Good afternoon. The headlines at 4:31. GB News sources understand that every adult in Britain will require a new government-issued digital ID card under plans to be set out by Sir Keir Starmer. The Prime Minister was expected to announce the move in a bid to tackle illegal immigration. More breaking news this afternoon. The Prime Minister's head of communications, Steph Driver, has become the latest in a series of senior aides to leave Downing Street. Ms Driver said that the Prime Minister's government had her unwavering support as she announced her departure today. 2 more migrants have been removed to France under the government's partial returns deal, bringing the total so far to 6. The latest deportations involved an Afghan and a Somali. The first arrivals under the deal, a family of 3 with a young child, landed in Britain yesterday. Andy Burnham says Labour MPs have urged him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the leadership, but he insists he isn't plotting a return to Westminster. Cabinet Minister Steve Reid says the speculation is tittle-tattle.
Andy is committed to serving his full term as Mayor of Manchester, which concludes in 2028. I know he will want to work with the government.
The taxi driver who dropped off the Southport killer at the dance class where he murdered 3 children has told a public inquiry he regrets not calling the police sooner. Driver Gary Poland did not call emergency services until 50 minutes after hearing screams at the heart space, having picked up another fare and returned home first. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Breaking news there. We can see live pictures on our screen there. Turkey's President Erdogan turning up at the White House. There is Donald Trump, who's emerged from those infamous doors there at the White House. The flags of Turkey and the United States flying side by side. We can see there the 2 presidents shaking hands, turning around for a quick photo call, stepping inside, of course, for a long line of trade talks and, of course, military agreements on the table. The latest in a long line of 2 leaders with a lot in common and also a lot of differences between them, particularly on Israel, on Vladimir Putin, and also on border control. Huge amounts to talk about as they go into those fabled officers there. How will Turkey come out of it? They will be expecting and wanting a favourable trade deal, as everybody before them has. Few have succeeded to crack President Donald Trump. Will Erdogan do that? Let's go to our man Ben Leo, live for us there, right on the ground in Washington, D.C. at the White House. Ben, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Erdogan just arriving now at the White House. And as I just said previously before the news, the big conversation of the day is whether President Trump will allow Turkey back into the F-35 programme. So Turkey, in a nutshell, they want to purchase loads of F-35 fighter jets to bolster their defence capabilities. And the reason they can't is because Trump himself, back in 2020, booted them out of the programme because Turkey went and bought loads of Russian missiles, which got NATO's backs up, and it was against NATO sanctions at the time. So Turkey were removed from the F-35 programme. Today, though, President Erdogan, fresh off the UN meeting in New York a few days ago with President Trump, will be in the Oval Office imminently, having a conversation in front front of reporters and, I mean, I'd say pretty much begging President Trump to lift those F-35 sanctions. In the meantime, they are allowed Turkey to instead buy F-16 fighter jets. They want to buy loads of passenger jets as well from the likes of Boeing, some 747s. That's absolutely fine. But the big contentious issue is the F-35 jets. It's rumoured, word on the street here in DC, outside the White House, is that President Trump will drop those sanctions and Turkey will indeed be allowed to purchase as many F-35s from Lockheed Martin, the defence contractor, as they like. And the reason Turkey's doing that is because they're wary of the situation in the Middle East with Israel, Gaza and also Syria as well. So if they do agree on the F-35 purchases today and the dropping of sanctions, one thing Turkey and the USA and President Trump won't agree on is the stance and the situation in Palestine, because Turkey, for example, don't even consider Hamas a terrorist organisation. They're very pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza, whereas President Trump, of course, we all know the stance. I mean, as it stands at the moment, despite some concern from the White House, they're letting Israel get on with it. Erdogan in the UN in New York a few days ago said that anybody who aids and abets Israel in this genocide, as he described it, Erdogan's words, was guilty of the genocide themselves. But Secretary of State Marco Rubio hitting back quite fiery this morning, saying, well, that's fine if they want to say that. It doesn't stop them coming to the White House today and begging for those F-35 jets, does it, Martin?
That's, of course, exactly right. And, of course, trade and finance always comes first, it seems, with Donald Trump. Ben Leo, thank you very much, Dan. Our man there, live from the ground in Washington, D.C. Ben Leo, live from the White House. Now, we're coming up next. We're going to continue that conversation, the huge conversation, the breaking news in this past hour. So Keir Starmer is to introduce Tony Blair-style digital ID for all British citizens. They say it's to help clamp down on illegal immigration and illegal working within Britain. But that means every British citizen will have to show their papers. Do you think that's a price worth paying? That's next with me, Martin Daubney.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Remaining mostly dry over the next couple of days, then a change as we head towards the weekend with outbreaks of rain starting to push their way in from the west. Now, the current picture is that we have high pressure situated to the east of the country. This will bring in a southeasterly flow towards this evening, dragging in more cloud at times, and also low pressure out to the west, waiting in the wings before we head through to the weekend. So clouds starting to push into parts of East Anglia, Sussex and Kent. At times this could drag in a shower. Also parts of Yorkshire and Lincolnshire could see some showers through the overnight period. Turning quite windy across western parts of Scotland too, a chance we could see some coastal gales. But across Northern Ireland, Wales, southwest England, plenty of clear skies and lighter winds. So it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning and also some isolated frost at times. Heading our way over to Scotland first thing on Friday, and once again mostly dry, some patchy cloud in places, but some rather strong winds across any exposed coasts in the west. Fairly breezy around western coast of Northern Ireland too, but remaining mostly dry here, similar across northern parts of England. And across Wales, parts of the southwest, some isolated frost, some mist and fog, but things won't turn quite as chilly across parts of East Anglia and Sussex and Kent, more cloud pushing in through here. And as we head through the course of the day, this cloud will continue to push its way westwards, and once again we could see some showers associated with this. The best of the brightness will be across Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and southwest England, also western Scotland will be fairly bright, but once again it will be quite windy here at times too. Temperatures won't be quite as high as we head into tomorrow, highs reaching around 16 to 17 degrees Celsius. Later into Friday evening, it won't turn quite as chilly, cloudier skies stopping too much frost developing also. And also we'll start to see some rain, some stronger winds begin to push in from the west. That leads to some unsettled weather for Saturday, also some rain and showers through Sunday, but then eventually turning brighter into next week.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A76 near Carron Bridge is closed due to an incident. Drivers should follow diversions and allow extra time. On the M56, an accident westbound between junctions 6 and 7 causes delays, with 3 lanes closed. The A14 in Northamptonshire is shut westbound between junctions 22 and 13 due to a vehicle fire. Congestion is reported on the A14 eastbound in Suffolk. The M27 eastbound exit at junction 2 in Hampshire is blocked by an accident. And on the trains, Greater Anglia faces disruptions, while northern buses replace trains. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 5 with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News. Now, breaking news story this past hour. GB News sources understand that every British adult will soon be required to carry digital ID cards. Keir Starmer is expected to make the announcement as part of the government's plans to tackle illegal immigration. And this could be a glimpse into our future. Look at that. There's a mock-up of me on my mush on an ID card, a so-called Brit card. Let's get the thoughts now of Alan Miller, who is the co-founder of the Together Declaration. Alan, a pleasure to have your company. You've seen this come in a country mile off. You said during lockdowns this would happen. You contacted me earlier this week saying, Martin, this is a hill I'm prepared to die on. And now, Alan Miller, we're hearing it's happening.
That's right, Martin. We know that the Labour Together proposal for Brit Card, it's being seeded for some time. Liz Kendall, who wanted to snoop and take money out of bank accounts, has been talking about it, Pat McFadden, and of course, Keir Starmer. We're told that it will stop the boats, Martin, but if we look at two examples, one in Italy, where there's over 109,000 illegals that have come in 2024, where they have a national identity card. And if we look in France, they've just sent back 120,000 so-called illegal migrants, and they also have a national identity card. The idea that we have a digital ID, national identity card, and that somehow stops the boats is an insulting nonsense. For hundreds of years, we've defended our border. The issue is a commitment, a political commitment, a willingness to deal with the ECHR and the Human Rights Act, a willingness to use the Navy and the Army, maybe even the fishing people and the farming communities and our citizens, but to defend our borders, which the British public wants. What the British public does not need and does not want is a snooping central digital ID system that will continue to expand on surveying us, spying on us, debanking us for certain views, having two-tier censorship, having two-tier police attend your house if you post something when they have a central database, maybe shutting you down if your carbon footprint's a little too high, or switching off your electricity on that lovely meter that's linked.
Alan Miller, superb stuff. I'm afraid I have to interrupt because Donald Trump is speaking at the White House.
Turkey, and we're going to continue. We're going to do some additional trade. They want to buy F-16s, F-35s, and some other things, and we're going to talk to them about that. And we're just going to have, I think, a very interesting couple of hours. We're going to get a lot done. But I have great respect for this man, and we've had a very good relationship for a long time. If you remember, he led Pastor Brunson. He freed Pastor Brunson. Pastor Brunson was put in jail for 35 years before I got there. This was a group that should have stopped it, and the president, after I called him, released him, which was a great thing for our Christian community. Our evangelical community, the evangelicals really wanted that. It was very important to him, so I always remembered that. But he released him from 35 years in prison. And Pastor Brunson now is healthy, happy, and well. And we're very happy about that. But it's a great honor to have the president of Turkey with us. And how are you?
Fine.
Say a few words.
And you?
Great guy.
Öncelikle bu ziyaretimizi Birleşmiş Milletler Genel Kurulu'yla iç içe olan bir dönemde gerçekleştirdiğimizden dolayı arkadaşlarımla beraber çok mutluyuz. Gerek Sayın Trump'ın birinci döneminde gerekse ikinci dönemde Türkiye-Amerika ilişkilerinde farklı bir süreci yaşıyoruz. Kendilerinin de az önce ifade ettiği gibi.
And that is President Erdogan there, the Turkish Premier speaking, of course, in Turkish. We don't have a translation feed on that. Donald Trump might have a translation feed in his ear. There is a translator next to the President there who may give us some English translation in a short while. Are we going to wait on this to see what happens next, or should we... OK, so what's on the table today is of huge significance. Huge military contracts of American F-35 fighter jets. Donald Trump, of course, has been doing billions of dollars worth of business around the world on AI, on defence, and, of course, forcing countries in NATO to pay their full 5% means that they basically buy American armaments. And, of course, that's what Donald Trump wants. We have an English translation now. Let's listen in.
And as we have said, during the first term of your presidency and during your second term, we are able to carry Turkey and U.S. relations to a much different level and process. And as you've said, we have an opportunity here today to be able to discuss some of the issues regarding the F-35, the F-16, and also the Halkbank case, and we will have an opportunity to thoroughly discuss them. And based on what you have mentioned regarding the Heybeliada school, we are ready to do whatever we can that falls on our part, and I will, when I get back, try to discuss this issue with the esteemed Mr. Bartholomos to discuss how we can move forward on that.
Okay, very good. I would like to be able to do that. The Greek Orthodox Church was here, and they would really like to have some help. They need some help, and I said I'd mention it, and we appreciate it. So this is a tough man. This is a guy who's highly opinionated. Usually I don't like opinionated people, but I always like this one. But he's a tough one, and he does an amazing job in his country. And we've had tremendous relationships, both having to do with war and having to do with trade. And I guess today we're talking about both. I'd like to have him stop buying any oil from Russia while Russia continues his rampage against Ukraine. And they've been fighting. They've lost millions of lives already. And for what? You know, for what? It's disgraceful. And I said yesterday, let it keep going because their economy is absolutely terrible right now. And I think it's a shame that they're doing that, killing a lot of people unnecessarily. 7,818 people were killed last week, mostly military people, their people, and Ukrainians. More Russians, actually, than Ukraine, a little bit more. But it's such a waste of human life, and so he ought to stop. Putin ought to stop. And with that, we'll get to a little bit of a discussion. We're going to make some great trade deals for both countries. We do a lot of business with Turkey. They build great products. They build beautiful, great products, really fantastic manufacturers. And we buy a lot from them, and they buy a lot from us. Would you have any questions, please?
You repeatedly called out Obama and Biden administrations for their stupid decisions. One example you gave was the refusal to sell the Patriot missile defense systems to Turkey, which resulted in the expulsion of the country from the F-35 program. Now, you are known to be a great deal maker in Turkey. What can you do to undo the stupidity? Yes, CNN, sir.
CNN? Well, because you sounded like a nice guy, but CNN is fake news. I mean, but you sound like the real deal to me, so I'll answer the question. We're going to be discussing the Patriot system, which is the best system. We'll discuss that. We're going to discuss the F-35. We'll be discussing all of the things that you know about and that some of that you mentioned. And I think he'll be successful with buying the things he'd like to buy.
What concrete steps can you take?
Well, we'll have to see. We haven't even started yet. But I know he wants the F-35, and he's wanted that, and we're talking about that very seriously. And the F-16, we're in great shape. Certain other things he needed, as you know, and I'm going to see to it that we get that to him. He needs certain things, and we need certain things. And we're going to come to a conclusion. You'll know by the end of the day. Go ahead, please.
Sayın Cumhurbaşkanı, siz Başkan Trump'ın ne kadar barış için çabalar gösterdiğini daha önce de söylemiş bir cumhurbaşkanısınız. Siz de bölgede birçok ülkeyle, birçok liderle görüşmeler, kontaklar kurabiliyorsunuz. Bu konuda birlikte nasıl çalışabilirsiniz gelecekte?
Buna inandığım için zaten bunları söylüyorum. Birlikte el ele bölgedeki bu sıkıntıları aşacağımıza da inanıyorum.
Mr. President, when are you planning to lift
I haven't learned this language yet.
Yes.
What did he say?
The gentleman was asking, Mr. President, you have referred to President Trump's peace efforts, and you have also contact with many leaders in the region. And what do you think that you can do about this? And Mr. President has said that, yes, I believe in the peace efforts that President Trump is leading, and together we will be able to overcome the challenges in the region.
I think it's true. He's got tremendous influence in the region. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, when are you planning to lift tougher sanctions against Turkey?
Against sanctions against Turkey? Could be very soon. If we have a good meeting, almost immediately.
President Erdogan is removing tariffs on U.S. goods, and what impact it would be in U.S. production.
Where are you from?
Turkey.
I see. We have a lot of people from Turkey here. That's good. Because I like the questions very much, actually. They're very nice questions. We'll see about tariffs. We're going to be talking about tariffs.
We already removed them.
Well, we're going to be talking about that.
Even if not all NATO countries stop purchasing Russian oil?
We're going to be seeing about that. The NATO countries were disappointing in that regard, but they've been very amazing in other ways. They did, as you know, they went from 2% to 5% GDP, and that's a big step, and it's paid. I mean, they have the money there. And we're selling a tremendous amount of military equipment to NATO. We're selling. We're not giving like Biden did. We're selling it to NATO, and it's a lot. They're buying a lot, and I assume they're giving it to Ukraine. They could buy it for other reasons too, but I assume they're giving most of it to Ukraine. But they're buying highly sophisticated weaponry, and they're paying for it full price. And that's how we're involved. Biden gave $350 billion. Look, this war would have never started if I were president. If I were president, this war would never be happened. Would have never happened. Yeah.
Mr. President, I would like to ask about Gaza. Are you on the same page, Mr. Erdogan, for Palestine, Israel?
Well, I don't know his stance. I can't tell you about that. I just say that we want to get Gaza over with. I had a great meeting with the leaders of that area, of that region, generally speaking, the Middle East. We had a great meeting the other day at UNGA, as you know, and I think we're close to getting some kind of a deal done. Yeah, we want to get the hostages back. I have to get the hostages back. We're the ones that got the hostages, all of them that we have now. But it looks like there are 20 living hostages and probably 38 or so dead hostages. Pretty sad. And the parents of those dead souls, those dead, mostly men, boys, in many cases like literally boys, they want those bodies back so badly, as much as though they were alive. And so we had a very good meeting with the representatives of the most powerful countries in the Middle East, and I think we're going to be close to a deal.
Mr. President, we've noticed that in the Ukrainian war and during the Israeli-Iran war, the airspace of the NATO countries is very fragile, and it needs to be stronger. And in that sense, Turkey being the second largest army in NATO, it needs to support its air force and air defense. How do you look at this issue in general as a NATO?
Well, we support them. I mean, we're in NATO, and you know, they're paying now 5% of GDP. Nobody thought that was possible, and they agreed to that 6 months ago when I was there. And the relationship is very good. The NATO countries are, I mean, with us, is the strongest it's ever been. We used to complain that they're paying 2%, but they're not paying. The United States was paying almost everything. And now they're paying 5%, and they paid. And that's trillions of dollars. You know, we're talking about trillions of dollars. And they're spending that, giving that money to us, and we are giving them great defensive, you know, the Patriots and all of the different javelins, all the different missile systems and everything else that they want. But it's, you know, it's trillions of dollars. So we appreciate that they did that. So they went from 2% to 5% of GDP, and that was something that nobody even would bring up. Biden should have brought it up a long time ago, because under Biden, we paid $350 billion, and all it did is make things worse. So we'll see how it goes.
35s to Turkey, fighter jets, F-35s.
Yeah, we're talking about the fighter jets for Turkey. Yes, we are.
Are we going to see any steps going to be taken today about the issue, about the things that are going on in the Gaza, Palestine? Are we going to...
It could be today, yeah, it could be today. We have a very strong dialogue going on with Saudi Arabia, with, I would say, you have 4 or 5 real leaders that are being good. As you know, I met with Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE. We met with Jordan. The King of Jordan was there. We had a really great meeting. I think a lot was determined at that meeting. And I have to meet with Israel, and I have to do that also. They know what I want, and I think we can get that one done. I hope we can get it done. A lot of people are dying. But we want the hostages back. We don't want them back 1 this week, 1 and 2 months from now, 3 later, and like the way it's been going. We got them all back. We got a lot of them back. We got the American Alexander. We got the American hostages back. But we have now 20 plus 38 bodies, dead bodies, and we want them all back. And we want them back at one time.
President Erdogan will help to release the hostages?
Do I think what?
Do you think President Erdogan will help to release the hostages?
I don't know if he'll help in that. I don't really think we have. I don't think it'll be necessary in this case. I think we're going to be in a pretty good position. There are a lot of people that want that done. I met with great leaders. Look, you saw the people that were there, and great leaders. Egypt was also represented. We met with the leaders of that part of the world, and they want to see if they can get something done. And I'm going to have to tell Israel, let's go. We want to get the hostages back. Everybody wants to see that war over with, by the way. Everybody. So we're going to see what happens.
How do you see a joint initiative with President Erdogan to bring the President of Russia, Putin, and President Zelensky to the negotiating table?
Well, I can tell you that President Erdogan is very respected by both of them. Everybody respects Erdogan. They really respect Erdogan. I do. And I think he could have a big influence if he wants to. Right now, he's very neutral. He likes being neutral. So do I like being neutral. But he's somebody that, if he got involved, the best thing he could do is not buy oil and gas from Russia. If he did that, that would be probably the best thing. He knows Putin like I know Putin. I thought Putin, I settled, as you know, 7 wars, and it's probably more than that if you really want to know the real facts, but 7 wars, and I thought this would be among the easier ones to settle. But I'm very disappointed in Putin. And he's been fighting hard, he's been fighting long, and they lost millions, they lost like 1 million soldiers. And you know, with all of the heavy bombardment over the last 2 weeks, they've gained almost no land. Think of that. They've gained almost no land. And I'm not going to ever call anybody a paper tiger, but Russia spent millions and millions of dollars in bombs, missiles, ammunition, and lives, their lives. And they've gained virtually no land. I think it's time to stop. I really do.
A few months ago, you met with Aliyev and Pashinyan. Can you follow up?
So where?
You met with Aliyev and Pashinyan, Azerbaijan President Aliyev and Pashinyan. Can you follow up on what you want to say about current process?
No, I can't. I like this guy. I like him. He's from CNN. Fake news, the worst fake news, but I like him. So it's CNN Turkey. I'll get Brian. Go.
Syria has been a major issue between the two countries for the past decade. And you said the future to Syria is in Erdogan's hands back in, I think, December and January. And the countries are in the process of integrating regional fractures into the main government. When do you want to see that happen?
Well, I think President Erdogan is the one responsible for Syria, for the successful fight in ridding Syria of its past leader. And I think this man is responsible. He doesn't take the responsibility, but it's actually a great achievement. They've been trying to do it for 2,000 years. I said, he does it. He did it. I mean, they're your surrogates. I think you should take the credit for it. I told him take the credit. For 2,000 years, you've been trying to take over Syria. He took over Syria, and he doesn't want to take the credit. You know, all of those people are his surrogates. But the leader of Syria, the new leader, as you know, I took sanctions off in order to let them breathe, because the sanctions were very strong. But I think we should have a major announcement today. He was responsible for that victory. It was a victory for Turkey, because they've been fighting, as you know, for like 1,000 years. And it never went, you know, it was back and forth, but he's responsible for that. So he would have a lot to say with respect to Syria. But at his request, I took, and the request also of the King of Saudi Arabia, it's very interesting, and Qatar, they said if you could take the sanctions. We had very strong sanctions. They couldn't have lived with those sanctions, and I took them off to give them a chance to breathe. But the president was one of the people that was responsible for that. He asked me to do it, and I did it.
Mr. President, furloughs are very typical when the government shuts down. Why is the administration directing federal layoffs of federal workers this time around?
Well, this is all caused by the Democrats. They asked us to do something that's totally unreasonable. They never change. They want to give money away to illegally, people that entered our country illegally. They want to give them massive federal money. And we don't want to do that because it means everyone's going to just keep pouring back. Right now we have absolutely perfect borders like you haven't seen in many years. Even better than I had great borders during my 4 years, but these borders are stone cold closed. You can only come into our country legally now. But the Democrats want to give it all away. They want to open up the borders. Take a look at that. It's a big thing. They want to open borders again after what we're going through now, getting rid of prisoners, getting rid of all of these people dropped out from mental institutions, drug dealers, drug addicts, everything. They're putting everybody into our country. It's all ended now. But this is what Schumer wants. This is what the Democrats want. They want to have, and they want to take our money. We're doing well because of tariffs. We're doing unbelievable. We're making more money than we ever have made. And by the way, we're going to take some of that tariff money that we made, just to get off the subject for a second. We're going to take some of that tariff money that we made. We're going to give it to our farmers, who are, for a little while, going to be hurt until it kicks in. The tariffs kick into their benefit. So we're going to make sure that our farmers are in great shape because we're taking in a lot of money. We're finding, the other day, it was very interesting, they found $31 billion. They said, sir, we found 31. I said, you mean positively, right? They said, yeah, 31 million more than we knew. And they said, we don't know where it came from. I said, check the tariff shelf. They came back the following morning. They said, you're right, sir, it came from the tariffs. We've never seen anything like this. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking some money from all of the tariff money that we've taken, and we're going to distribute it to our farmers until the tariffs kick into their benefit, which ultimately the farmers are going to be making a fortune. But it's a process of, it has to kick in. All right, maybe one more.
There was another shooting at an ICE facility in Texas yesterday.
Terrible.
Detainees were killed. The FBI director posted on social media bullets that were engraved with the message anti-ICE.
Right.
He just posted another thing on social media saying they recovered a handwritten note from the subject that read, hopefully this will give ICE agents real terror to think, is there a sniper with AP rounds on that roof? Who do you hold responsible for the uptick in left-wing violence in the country?
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control. They're saying things, and they're really dumb people. I mean, I look at Crockett. I look at some of these people. They're very low IQ people, actually. But the radical left is causing this problem, not the right, the radical left. And it's going to get worse, and ultimately it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games. And I'll give you a little clue. The right is a lot tougher than the left. But the right's not doing this. They're not doing it, and they better not get them energized, because it won't be good for the left. And I don't want to see that happen either. I'm the president of all the people. But the radical left is causing this. Radical left Democrats are causing this problem, and it gets worse. It gets worse, and it'll be a point where other people won't take it anymore, and that will not be good for the radical left. And we don't want that. Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, it seems like an indictment of James Comey is imminent. Would this be the first step in accountability for pushing the hoax of Russia, along with Barack Obama involved as well?
Well, I can't tell you what's going to happen because I don't know. You have very professional people headed up by the Attorney General and Todd Blanche and Lindsay Halligan, who's a very smart, good lawyer, very good lawyer. They're going to make a determination. I'm not making that determination. I think I'd be allowed to get involved if I want, but I don't really choose to do so. I can only say that Comey's a bad person. He's a sick person. I think he's a sick guy, actually. He did terrible things at the FBI. And but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen. Thank you very much, everybody.
Okay, and that was President Donald Trump, of course, and President Erdogan of Turkey, and those now infamous Oval Office briefings there in the White House. Right from the top, Donald Trump was being very complimentary. The mood music is one of positivity, saying this is a tough man. He's highly opinionated. He does a tremendous job in his country. He said the number one thing I'd like to do is to stop buying Russian oil. Now, that might be quite a big ask because they import 300,000 barrels of the stuff per day. They're one of the highest importers of Russian oil, which, of course, is funding Putin's war against Ukraine. He announced a big announcement there. Sanctions could be lifted almost immediately against Turkey, despite that oil threat, if we have a good meeting today. So basically F-35s, F-16s, Patriot missiles on the table. If Erdogan is buying, it sounds like Donald Trump is certainly selling. Let's cross now to our man, GBNews presenter Ben Leo, live from us there at the White House in Washington, D.C. Ben, welcome to the show. It seems that the two boys want to do business.
Yes, they mean business. Hopefully Erdogan brought lots of Turkish delight to win Trump over because he wants those F-35s. And I have to say, listening to that Q&A session in my ear, I mean, it sounds like a car boot sale of questions from the media, just questions flying everywhere, some good, some not, absolute chaos. I'm quite glad I'm out here in the serenity of the President's Park, actually. But yes, as you said, Martin, President Trump calling Erdogan a very tough guy. He said, we're going to get a lot done. Just as a reminder to viewers, Turkey and Erdogan want those F-35 fighter jets. The reason they can't buy them from Lockheed Martin is because way back in 2020, President Trump booted Turkey out of the F-35 programme because Turkey went behind NATO's back and bought loads of Russian missiles. So that was their punishment. Today, they're going to be sitting down, as I said, in the White House to try and thrash out a deal. Turkey want the F-35s. Trump may say, as you've said, and as President Trump said in there, well, OK, well, let's have a meeting, let's have a talk. First of all, I want you to stop buying Russian oil because Putin must be stopped. He said that Erdogan has a big influence over Russia. He's very neutral, like me, President Trump said. I like to remain neutral. He knows Putin like I know Putin, and he can have some influence. Russia is a big story brewing today, Martin, because yesterday NORAD, which is the Canadian and US airspace partnership, scrambled fighter jets over Alaska because various Russian Su jets were infringing on NATO airspace. It came off the back of the situation in Poland a few weeks ago where Russian drones were shot down as well after incurring in Polish airspace as well. And J.D. Vance, the Vice President, over the past few hours has turned the screw, if you will, on Russia by saying, I believe the President is growing incredibly impatient with the Russians right now because he doesn't feel like they're putting enough on the table to end the war. Of course, President Trump doubling down just then in the Oval Office with Erdogan. But Martin and viewers and listeners back home, get this, in the last 2 hours, Deputy Chair of the Russian Security Council, Dmitry Medvedev, who's a prolific tweeter, a bit gobby, if you will, he has said, the Kyiv drug addict, he's talking about Zelensky, the Kyiv drug addict said the Kremlin should know where a bomb shelter is so its occupants can hide when he uses long-range American weapons. What the freak needs to know is that Russia can use weapons a bomb shelter won't protect against. Americans, said Medvedev, should also keep this in mind. So the rhetoric ramping up between Russia and America, and President Trump, J.D. Vance, not very happy with Putin at all.
But Ben Leo, one thing that we consistently see with whoever Donald Trump has sat down with, and that is if they're buying he's selling, despite the fact he's clearly not at all happy about the amount of oil that Turkey continues to buy from Vladimir Putin, which of course directly funds the Russian war machine. He wants to offload those F-35s. He wants to offload Patriots, F-16s. He wants to make a load of money from Turkey. The mood music seems to be there's going to be a deal done today, Ben.
Yeah, Turkey wants to buy not just the F-35s, which President Trump may greenlight, but also F-16s, Boeing 747s from Boeing as well. It could be a trade deal worth billions and billions of dollars. The other thing to bear in mind, though, is that the United States and Turkey disagree on the Palestine-Gaza situation in Israel. Turkey don't even consider Hamas a terrorist organisation, where, of course, President Trump in the White House here pretty much letting Israel get on with it. Despite some concern over the humanitarian situation, they're letting Israel just crack on with the job. So there's a bit of a contentious issue there as well. But at the end of the day, President Trump was a businessman first before being a politician. He puts America first, and if there's money to be made, if it's going to boost the economy and be in the interests of American jobs, then you'd have to say, and I guess come to realise that that's the way he operates. I think he will be going and accepting the F-35 programme, Turkey, back into the F-35 programme and making lots of wonga for the American people.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. He said there sanctions could be lifted almost immediately if we have a good meeting. Well, that meeting is about to take place, Ben Leo, and it looks like there's going to be a lot of money changing hands. Ben Leo, thank you as ever. Superb there, joining us live from the White House, our man in Washington, D.C. Thank you, Ben. Now, a reminder of the huge breaking news this afternoon, and it's this. It's been reported that all British adults, all of you, will soon be required to have a digital ID card under new government plans. Now, this is believed to be part of Sir Keir Starmer's attempts to clamp down on illegal immigration. But is that a price worth paying for every British citizen to stop the illegals coming into our country and then going on to work? Well, let's speak now with Dan Barker, who is the chairman of Reform UK's Greater Manchester branch. Dan, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. This is an idea that's been long in the offing. Tony Blair has wanted it for decades, and certainly during COVID lockdowns, they wanted us to become ostensibly walking barcodes. The Labour Party has floated this idea for months, and now it appears it's going to become a real deal. What's your take?
Well, thanks for having me on, Martin. And I must say, when I saw the news today, I find it very worrying, and I'm sure a lot of other people are, particularly at the current time. Why now? And, will it really stop people coming in on the boats? I seriously doubt it, because if they wanted to stop that, they could do that tomorrow by declaring a national emergency and detaining these people instead of putting them into hotels. I also think that, with the timing of it and everything else, that this is all part of, a push for a cashless society, and ultimately about more social control of all of our lives, every part of our lives. So I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think it should be welcomed. And I know that Reform are dead against this.
Now, Dan Barker, Sir Keir Starmer, the Labour Party would argue the counter-argument to that is that perhaps it's a price worth paying to try and track those who are working illegally. They wouldn't be able to get a bank account. They wouldn't be able to get a job. But it's also worth pointing out that there is a similar scheme in Italy, in Germany, and it hasn't worked there.
Exactly, and I've heard that from colleagues who live and work in Germany about what's the worry about an ID card. But then again, do you trust this government? Do you trust this establishment? What's the real motivation here? And I think trying to link it to immigration is just a front. It's just I don't believe it personally.
It's one that might gain some traction with the public. We'll have to wait and see. As I've got you here, Dan Barker, of course, Andy Burnham is touting himself, it looks like, as a potential successor to Sir Keir Starmer, certainly getting tongues wagging and causing something of a civil war within the Labour Party. They're now calling him Liz Truss. They call everyone Liz Truss, it seems, that they don't like. Of course, your patch is Greater Manchester. Andy Burnham is the mayor there. What's your take on Andy Burnham as the next leader of the Labour Party?
Well, he's certainly, he's been enjoying a lot of time in the limelight recently. But I think, for the rest of us, whether it's, a failing Prime Minister in the shape of Keir Starmer, or someone even further left from him who's been rejected twice by the Labour Party, coming back for a third attempt, I think we just really want Labour to sort out the mess they're making and get on with the job. It's ironic that, now here we are, only a year, 18 months into their term in office, And we've got another psychodrama playing out. Who's going to be the next leader? Who's up? Who's down? And the way they criticised the Tories for that when they were in opposition, and now that's beginning to be the norm for Labour as well. I don't
Dan Barker, one final point, if I could.
Yeah.
There's a poll out today by More in Common saying that the Labour Party would be tipping the polls ahead of reform if Andy Burnham were to become the leader. 25% Keir Starmer versus 28% reform at present. But it could be 30% Labour, 28% reform if Andy Burnham were to be the leader. Are you running scared of Andy Burnham?
Absolutely not. And I think you've got to look at his record in Greater Manchester to see that, actually it's very underwhelming in terms of what he's actually achieved compared to the propaganda he puts out. We'd had the charging air zone, £100 million wasted on that, and no apology, no real excuse. We've had a lot of champagne socialism, but there's all at the same time, you don't have to go far in the city to see people who feel left behind and who are left behind. Despite all the money and all the power that Andy Burnham has had here for 9 years, I think you would have seen a lot more change in Greater Manchester with a different leader and a different party. And I hope that Reform get a chance at that in the future.
OK, thanks for joining us. That's the chairman of Reform UK's Greater Manchester branch, Dan Barker. Thanks, Dan, for joining me on the show today. A pleasure to have your company. Now, Boris Johnson, do you remember him? Well, he's back once again. And he's made some extraordinary claims about the Reform UK leader, Nigel Farage.
My concerns, as I say, and they're serious concerns, are about the approach to the economy of the Reform Party and the approach on national security.
Well, does Boris have a point, or is it all sour grapes? Because, of course, Nigel Farage has been on the offensive himself of the so-called Boris wave. Let's speak now with the former chairman of the Defence Select Committee, Tobias Ellwood. Tobias, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. So do you think Boris Johnson has a point?
Well, whether you agree or disagree with Johnson or Farage, this pair have been formidable. I mean, between them, they've probably done more than anybody else to alter UK foreign policy. That's where I look at things from, given their leading roles in supporting Brexit. I suspect we want to see how that's faring and discuss that on another day. But they represent the big personality, the commanding presence that plays in an ever greater role in our 24/7 politics today. Two big beasts on the political stage, but both, I have to say, with a loose relationship with the truth, able to energize the public with sound bites, with populist noises, playing on understandable frustration and anger to rally support. But I fear that they're now going to start taking chunks out of each other, blaming each other. It may make good entertainment, certainly for you people, but it's not good for British politics or indeed for Britain. We've just been watching the US president in New York trash the United Nations, which is not without its problems. If Trump pulls America out of the UN, there goes the last efforts to support global order. And the UN goes the way of the League of Nations in the 1930s. And conflict will follow. World War III certainly will follow. So my message to Farage and Johnson is stop arguing with each other. Put Britain first. They both claim to have the ear of President Trump. Use it to prevent further American isolationism, beginning with a serious commitment, not just in words, but to stand up to Russia.
Tobias Ellwood, the problem with your thesis is that Donald Trump pointed out with perfect clarity, I felt, that the United Nations writes strongly worded letters and doesn't do anything. It puffs up its chest. It doesn't solve wars. It's become pointless.
You're absolutely right. But who supports the UN? Who's the biggest leader of the UN? Who's the biggest provider of funds for the United Nations? It's actually America. And if America chooses to hold back its funding, to pull out of those agencies, the UN itself becomes ever weaker. So you're absolutely right in your criticism. But the trouble is, if member states, particularly those on the Security Council, don't bother to enforce it, to make it work, to repair it, then it falls apart. And as I say,
Tobias,
if there are no rules on the international stage, that leads to war.
But Tobias, the point that Donald Trump was trying to make, and one I think also applies to the European Union, is that the globalists, let's all come together and solve these problems as one unit, simply doesn't work. Vladimir Putin didn't listen to NATO, didn't listen to the European Union, didn't listen to the United Nations, neither did Israel. The point that Donald Trump was trying to make, we need, and I think Nigel Farage would also make the same point, we need stronger nation states, not watered-down globalist collectives.
Absolutely, you need stronger nation states, but there needs to be some commonality of what we agree to. What are those international rules that we're willing to abide by? If there are no international rules, countries can do their own thing. And park America for a second. Look at what China is doing in the South China Sea. Look at what Russia is doing in Eastern Europe. These are the
they won't listen to the United Nations. None of them will listen to the United. None of those nations you just mentioned there will give a cahoot about what the UN say.
And why is that? Because the UN Security Council itself is now paralyzed because of the veto. It should have been upgraded 3 or 4 decades ago. And it's, as I say, it's going the way of the League of Nations. I don't disagree with anything you say on the criticism of the UN. My concern is that the UN is only as good as the member states that bother to support it. And who helped craft it in the first place? The United States of America. And if America pulls out, I'm making it.
Ooh. You seem to have a different guess there. Tobias, you've either transmogrified into somebody else or you lost us there. Tobias, an absolute pleasure to have your company. You were cut off there in your prime, but I think we made a great conversation. Now let's move on. It's time now for our latest great British giveaway, and it's our biggest prize to date. It's worth over 104 grand. That includes a full-berth motorhome worth over 74 grand and 30 grand in tax-free Wonga. Here's how you could win it.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, still to come, data seen exclusively by GB News has revealed an astonishing 1,025% boom in asylum seekers who claim to be victims of modern slavery. Is that true? Or is our asylum system simply a laughing stock? This is GB News. You're with me, Martin Daubney, on Britain's News Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live, every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Welcome back. Time is 5:26. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, are lunatics in charge of the asylum system once again, because the Home Office is under fire again after granting asylum to an Afghan migrant who subsequently went back to Afghanistan on holiday and then did nothing. And then they did absolutely nothing to stop him, and then he came back. Well, let's get the thoughts now of the director of the Afghan Human Rights Foundation, Mohammed Asif. Mr. Asif, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. This case is absolutely astonishing. This individual who came here illegally on a dinghy in April 2022, one of 2,143 who came here this month, posted videos bragging of his journey. He was picked up by the RNLI. He played techno music on a TikTok video. Then he clears off back to Afghanistan, a so-called unsafe country, on an 8-week holiday where he posts videos of him having the life of Riley. I put it to you, this guy should be booted straight out of Britain.
Well, first of all, your introduction, to asylum seekers coming on the back of dinghy illegally, because all the legal routes are closed. So whoever comes to this country, whether he's granted or she's granted, they have every right to claim asylum, and that's under the legislation, the Geneva Convention. Secondly, I would like to point out, I do not know the particular case circumstances. I do not know what sort of status this particular refugee from Afghanistan had. Maybe he had a status under Article 8. Maybe, his circumstances have changed in Afghanistan. So when one person, goes back to Afghanistan or whatever country they belong to, it does not mean that everyone should be on the same boat. You do not know.
Well, I do. I do know the cases. It's in the national press. He came here and claimed asylum. Hang on. He came here and claimed asylum, claiming it was unsafe for him to return to his nation. It then swans off on a long holiday. All that's missing is a picture of him on a banana boat. And I put it to you, this brings great shame upon the nation of Afghanistan.
As I said, the Home Office assess every asylum case very thoroughly in its case-by-case basis. Everyone has different circumstances. And, it's in the Sun newspaper, and I don't really trust the Sun newspaper, whatever they publish, it's just the headline. So if it was in a respectful newspaper or something, then I would agree with you probably. But as I said, I do not know the circumstances. The Home Office clearly says if you are granted refugee status, which is valid for 5 years, you are not allowed to go back to your country.
Yeah,
but
you see
neither
the problem,
Sun newspaper, not you, not myself,
the problem
knows what
with
status
that,
this guy has.
Mohammed Asif, the problem with that is that The Guardian, you call that a respectful newspaper,
Yeah,
many would disagree with that. They wouldn't report on this case because it doesn't fit their narrative. Their narrative is it's unsafe to return for anyone to return to Afghanistan. This individual is clearly taking the mickey out of the British taxpayer, out of the British Home Office. And I put it to you once again for a calm response. If we're led to believe that we should be a welcoming country to Afghans who genuinely need refugee status and protection, this guy is undermining the reputation of all of your citizens.
It's not about all the citizens, as I said. One person, going against the rule of law, that doesn't mean everyone has to be in the same boat. And as you mentioned, The Guardian, I trust The Guardians, more than The Sun and the Daily Mail and others, because they publish the facts, where the Daily Mail and The Sun and others, like your channel, just goes by the headline. And as I said, you do not know the particular circumstances of this individual, neither the Sun newspaper, not myself. As I said, the Home Office, if you're granted refugee status, which is valid for 5 years, that does not allow to go back to your country. But as I said, we do not know the circumstances. And, anyone goes with refugee status, the Home Office clearly states that they may be thinking or considering revoking that particular status for that particular person.
So Mohammed Asif, I gave you every opportunity there to condemn this individual who is clearly taking the rise out of British taxpayers. I believe he brings shame on your nation, because it makes British citizens feel less empathy towards the genuine people if they're taking the mickey like this. You don't want to engage in that conversation. Instead, you're saying you don't trust The Sun, you don't trust the Daily Mail, you don't trust GB but you would trust it was in The Guardian. It's astonishing.
No, we both speak English language, and I understand you and you understand me, I believe. As I said, the Home Office clearly states, if you are given refugee status, you are not allowed to, visit your home country under whatever circumstances. Yeah, that's in the Home Office legislation. If this particular person, went against the rules of the Home Office has every right to revoke, that particular status given to this person. But it does not bring any, negative, name to myself or to my colleagues or any other asylum seekers in this country, because there are a lot of people who goes against the rules, and that, on whatever basis, he went to Afghanistan, he might be granted, a status under Article 8. Maybe his circumstances have changed and he went to Afghanistan. So the Home Office clearly states you cannot travel to Afghanistan.
Yeah, maybe this individual who goes by the name of DG Osama will come back to Britain and claim he was traumatised by an 8-week jolly where he went to the beach, where he listened to techno music. I can imagine his pain. Thanks for joining us on the show today, Mohammed Asif. Always a pleasure to have your company. Now, in response to this story, a Home Office spokeswoman issued the following statement. Whilst we do not comment on individual cases, where there is evidence of someone holding protection status returning to their country of origin, it will trigger a review of their status. And plenty more to come throughout the rest of the show. But for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, first stay safe. And here is your traffic and your travel update, and please stick with us.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Road closures and delays affect several UK routes. The A76 is closed near Carron Bridge due to a serious incident. Travellers should follow diversions and allow extra journey time. In East Riding of Yorkshire, the A63 westbound has lane closures due to a broken down vehicle between the A15 and the A1034. A vehicle fire in Northamptonshire has closed all lanes of the A14 westbound between junctions 22 and 13 at Thrapston. Suffolk roads are congested on the A14 eastbound with 30-minute delays. And on the trains, expect disruptions on the Elizabeth line to and from London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, your news update at 5:33. GB News sources understand that every adult in Britain will require a new government-issued digital ID card, under plans to be set out by Sir Keir Starmer. The Prime Minister is expected to announce the move in a bid to tackle illegal immigration. The Prime Minister's head of communications, Steph Driver, has become the latest in a series of senior aides to leave Downing Street. Ms Driver said the Prime Minister's government had her unwavering support as she announced her departure today. 2 more migrants have been removed to France under the government's partial returns deal, bringing the total so far to 6. The latest deportations involved an Afghan and a Somali. The first arrivals under the deal, a family of 3 with a young child, landed in Britain yesterday. Andy Burnham says Labour MPs have urged him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the leadership, but he insists he isn't plotting a return to Westminster. Cabinet Minister Steve Reid says the speculation is tittle-tattle.
Andy is committed to serving his full term as Mayor of Manchester, which concludes in 2028. I know he will want to work with the government.
The taxi driver who dropped off the Southport killer at the dance class where he murdered 3 children has told a public inquiry he regrets not calling the police sooner. Driver Gary Poland did not call emergency services until 50 minutes after hearing screams at the Hart space, having picked up another fare and returned home first. And Turkey's President Erdogan is in the White House for talks on defence and trade with President Trump. During the press conference, the US president said that he would like Turkey to stop buying oil from Russia. Those are the headlines for now. More news at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Remaining mostly dry over the next couple of days, then a change as we head towards the weekend with outbreaks of rain starting to push their way in from the west. Now, the current picture is that we have high pressure situated to the east of the country. This will bring in a southeasterly flow towards this evening, dragging in more cloud at times, and also low pressure out to the west, waiting in the wings before we head through to the weekend. So clouds starting to push into parts of East Anglia, Sussex and Kent. At times this could drag in a shower. Also parts of Yorkshire and Lincolnshire could see some showers through the overnight period. Turning quite windy across western parts of Scotland too, a chance we could see some coastal gales. But across Northern Ireland, Wales, southwest England, plenty of clear skies and lighter winds. So it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning and also some isolated frost at times. Heading our way over to Scotland first thing on Friday, and once again mostly dry, some patchy cloud in places, but some rather strong winds across any exposed coasts in the west. Fairly breezy around western coast of Northern Ireland too, but remaining mostly dry here. Similar across northern parts of England and across Wales, parts of the southwest, some isolated frost, some mist and fog, but things won't turn quite as chilly across parts of East Anglia and Sussex and Kent. More cloud pushing in through here, and as we head through the course of the day, this cloud will continue to push its way westwards, and once again we could see some showers associated with this. The best of the brightness will be across Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and southwest England. Also western Scotland will be fairly bright, but once again it will be quite windy here at times too. Temperatures won't be quite as high as we head into tomorrow, highs reaching around 16 to 17 degrees Celsius. Later into Friday evening, it won't turn quite as chilly, cloudier skies stopping too much frost developing also. And also we'll start to see some rain, some stronger winds begin to push in from the west. That leads to some unsettled weather for Saturday, also some rain and showers through Sunday, but then eventually turning brighter into next week.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Time is 5:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Home Office was refused permission to appeal against a temporary injunction blocking an Eritrean person from being removed to France as part of its so-called one-in, one-out deal. Now, the man argues he shouldn't be deported due to claims of modern slavery. However, the reason is now part of a growing trend, with modern slavery claims soaring by an astonishing 1,025% in the last 11 years, with data from Stand for Our Sovereignty seen exclusively by GB News. Well, we can now speak with the research director at the Centre for Migration Control, Rob Bates, and also the political commentator, Fahima Mohammed, for a debate on this conversation. Let's start with you, if we could, Rob Bates. Rob, the figures show there's been an 1,100% boom almost in modern slavery claims, and that's being used by people to avoid deportation. Is that actually happening, or do you think this might be a ruse for people to game the system and remain in the UK?
Well, first of all, well done to standing for our sovereignty in what they've produced here. Is really a demonstration of how politicians are feeding us a pack of lies when they say that they're able to tackle the small boats crisis and the illegal migration crisis without a fundamental overhaul of the way our legal framework works, not just on the human rights law. What we are now seeing with this data is a huge increase in the number of people that recognise that if they make claims under the modern slavery laws, they have a very strong chance of being able to use that as a basis to remain in the country. And I think when you look at the sheer scale and the sheer number of countries that appear on this list, you recognise that actually this is something that is undoubtedly being exploited. You know, these are individuals that are interacting with NGOs and immigration groups that are undoubtedly advising them that this is a means through which they are able to strengthen their abilities to stay in this country. So I think this is very important work, and I'd like to commend those that produced the work.
Okay, Fahima Mohammed, let's bring you in. Are we sincerely to believe there's been an 1,100% boom in slavery on the European continent? 7 out of 20 of the top nations where asylum seekers in Britain are claiming they were enslaved are in Europe. It's France, Germany, Italy, Belgium. I put it to you, this isn't actual slavery, it's people gaming the system.
Well, when it comes to the figures again, a lot of the referrals can be done more than once for one individual. So that's why the numbers are quite high. And yes, there is a rise in referrals, which reflect a system catching up with reality, not one being manipulative. The Modern Slavery Act sets a high bar, and the Home Office rejects many claims. The UK is tougher now than it's ever been. And if we want reform, let's fix the delays and catch the traffickers, not scapegoat the actual victims. And according to this very article we're discussing today, referrals in the UK is obviously increased, like you mentioned, by 1,000% over the last 11 years. But the thing is, most of that is not actually being claimed as for, approval. Is actually now being rejected at the very first stage.
A majority are still being accepted, and unfortunately I think actually what the increase does show, whether or not the natural numbers being approved, the percentage being approved have increased, is that this is now something that clearly those coming across on the small boat have cottoned onto, and it's not the first sort of loophole that we've seen being exploited in this scale. We've of course seen Christian conversions, we've of course seen people making claims that they're homosexuals and therefore can't be removed to their country's origin as well, or they'd face persecution. I think this is a real trend here, that we have such an ambiguous and extensive legal framework here that it's very easy for canny left-wing lawyers and NGOs to really start exploiting this and start exploiting the actual goodwill and the intent behind some of the legislation. And you talk about requiring a high evidential threshold. It's actually really just requiring the balance of probabilities to suggest that there is some likelihood of modern slavery taking place. Now, that really effectively, as this article does very correctly point out, effectively leaves it up to the discretion of one Home Office official to produce best guesswork as to whether this is actually an individual suffering slavery or not. So, there's a lot that we need to do to actually reform this, because people are sick of seeing our borders being exploited, and we need to have a very frank conversation. We can't afford to be the social care worker for the rest of the world and the rest of the world's problems.
Fahima.
No, I don't think that you understand that the law is not by left-wing lawyers. It is from the UK, high government that has set the law, and it's been only upheld in that way. And the process is anything but automatic or easy. In fact, it is long and complex and governed by some of the toughest anti-slavery laws in the world.
Fahima, that's kind of the point. It takes 2 years minimum to process this claim.
That. Well,
and some people are saying, Fahima, if I may, that allows people while they're in the country to lay down foundations, to have family, and then Article 8 kicks in. And as far as the refusal rate goes, it used to be as high as 90% of people, 90% who claim modern slavery were granted indefinite leave to remain. It's still 58%. It's still a highly effective method of staying in the country. And the point of the conversation today is the system being gamed?
I don't think it's been gamed. It's just really the rule of law, not manipulation. If serious offenders avoid deportation, it's only because the UK's laws must allow certain articles, and they don't walk free. Offenders still serve sentences in the UK and remain under strict monitoring. Okay, there are rare and not routine high-profile cases are exceptions, and we sometimes take 1 or 2 cases and we make it as if it's all the immigrants and it's all of them. Just like we do that for everyone when it comes to certain individuals from certain countries. It's like one person does something and that reflects the entire community, and that's not right and that's not fair. You cannot just pinpoint and take 1 or 2 cases and make it like as if everyone. If anything, this highlights that there are victims out there, and if anything, the law...
It's not 1 or 2 cases. There's been a 1,025% increase in 11 years. There's not 1 or 2 cases. It's thousands of them.
Yeah, but not, like I said, not all of them are being actually gone on there. Like you said, it's only half of them that are actually being approved, and they still have to be investigated. So we can go back and forth on this, but the UK law is tough and it's only getting tougher.
Look,
and at the end,
I'm just of the view that if we're not even able to remove an individual to France, we're not even able to deport an illegal migrant to France, then something is clearly wrong with the law. And unfortunately, this is something that has been in place now for 10 years and is escalating on a ski scope level increase.
Both of you, I'm afraid we have to leave it there. I'm sorry, we simply have run out of time. We've got a fantastic guest. That's why next I have to move on. Rob Bates, thank you very much. And also to Fahima Mohammed. Now, still to come, we've got this coming.
Over the Malvinas, South Georgia, South Sandwich Islands and the surrounding maritime areas that continue to be illegally occupied.
And the United Nations yesterday, the big-haired Argentinian president set his sights firmly on reclaiming the Falkland Islands. He claimed they were illegally occupied by Great Britain. Well, I'll speak to a Falklands war veteran next. The hero, Simon Weston, he joins me next. But in the meantime, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations. Well, mate. Gosh, well,
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
The heaviest and most thundery rain that's been affecting parts of Central Europe through recent days, that's now starting to ease. But nonetheless, a fair few showers across parts of Greece and nearby countries as we go through Friday. A few showery bursts still across Italy, could still be quite heavy towards the north. Meanwhile, further west across much of Spain and Portugal, it's largely fine, albeit with a few showery bursts pushing towards Madeira and the Canary Islands. Lots of fine weather for most of us through into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Is he the last great film star? Is that a silly thing to say?
No, it is. There is one more.
Of course.
Clint. I mean, absolute genius as a director and
He's in the Well, Clint is like him, you know, great actor,
correct, yeah.
Incredibly good looking.
He was so good looking for so long.
Yeah.
And you can see how it was a huge advantage initially and maybe a bit of a disadvantage as he got older.
Do you think so?
Yeah, because he was good looking. No, he was an actor as well. He was a director as well. That's why he changed and founded the Sundance Film Festival and whatever to show that he could bring forward projects.
And of course named after one of his most famous characters.
Yeah.
Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Yeah.
For you, when you think of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, what do you think of?
Oh, I think the jumping off the
That's it.
The cliff into the water. I
they
can't
both
swim.
stand there, and it's like, well, and then he goes, I can't swim.
Yeah.
And he said, well, then he starts laughing. He goes, well, the fall's probably going to kill you anyway, so then they just hold hands and then they run out.
But he was great into those films. When you look at those films in the 70s, like All the President's Men, I mean, just...
What a great film that is. Him and Dustin Hoffman.
That inspired
Woodward
me.
and Bernstein.
That inspired me to become a journalist, yeah. And I actually talked to the kids in here about how in that film they pick up and they say, and they typewriters and they use the phone. And it's not the way it is today, the way you send an email or a text or whatever it is. You get an answer from someone. You speak to them on the phone and they confirm something and you've got that detail. Whereas today they all wait for emails to be responded to and whatever.
See, the thing is, what you've got to do, though, surely, is loosen the tie, shirt undone, feet up on the desk with about 6 phones. Get me Deep Throat on the phone right now.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 to 6. Now, Argentina has launched a fresh bid to take over the Falkland Islands after its president, Javier Milei, referred to Britain's overseas territory as illegally occupied at the United Nations General Assembly speech yesterday. Well, let's get some reaction now from the man with a very strong opinion on this. Of course, is the Falklands War veteran, the hero, Simon Weston. Simon, a pleasure to have your company. Here we go again. They want to get their mitts on the Falkland Islands, islands which you put your life in grave peril defending. What's your opinion on this latest land grab?
It's crazy, isn't it? You know, his name is My Lying. I mean, they lie about the fact that they ever had a claim to the islands. If geography was the sole arbiter of why people should have a claim to something, then Greenland would belong to Canada, the Orkney Islands would belong to Norway, the Channel Islands would belong to France. It's just nonsense. They've never occupied the islands. When they claim that they occupied the islands as Argentina, they have to accept they were just a nation of states. They didn't even have a national flag or government. And the only time they ever did go there, during the last 250 some odd years, they went there with a load of deserters from the British Navy. So they were mercenaries. And apparently they killed the governor that went there. And that's in the 2 years or 18 months when the British had left. So we've had nearly 258, I think it is, years of continuous occupancy. And we've farmed it. We've created an industry there. There's, you know, there are so many very wealthy people in the islands. I can't see what his purpose would be to go there when nobody there wants them. So why would they give up the safety and sovereignty of Britain? And I was told by the minister in the government, Mr. Stephen Doughty, who's a Welshman and down in Pontypridd there, he's one of the front benchers for the government. He said, and he swore categorically to me and several other Falklands veterans, families as well, that the islands were not on any agenda to be talked about with Argentina or at the UN. But Mr. Milei is he's on one, isn't he? You know, perhaps he's consulted his dead dog again, and this is what they've got to talk about.
Simon, Simon, can I ask you a very quick question? I'm so curious about this. You speak so passionately. You're so well liked. You're so well known. There are elections coming up in May in Wales next year. You ever thought about throwing your hat in the ring at politics? You'd sweep the board, I'm sure of it.
That's all according if I'm liked enough by people. And what I do know is that you're guaranteed to be disliked by at least 2/3 of the population. My wife has always said to me, even though I'm very passionate about certain aspects of politics and the way that we get lied to quite regularly by so many people, and there are so many U-turns and things that are said just to get power, and I'm very passionate about being honourable with people. I don't know, my wife has said that she'd divorce me if I got into politics, and I couldn't afford that. We've been married for 35 years. I couldn't afford to divorce her. So, but no, you mean like there's an awful lot that needs to be done in the May elections, and hopefully we will see an outcome which will bring something positive for everybody.
Okay, Simon Weston, thank you so much. We have to leave it there. Excellent stuff. Let's go straight to Jubes and Co. She's up next.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Remaining mostly dry over the next couple of days, then a change as we head towards the weekend with outbreaks of rain starting to push their way in from the west. Now, the current picture is that we have high pressure situated to the east of the country. This will bring in a southeasterly flow towards this evening, dragging in more cloud at times, and also low pressure out to the west, waiting in the wings before we head through to the weekend. So clouds starting to push into parts of East Anglia, Sussex and Kent. At times this could drag in a shower. Also parts of Yorkshire and Lincolnshire could see some showers through the overnight period. Turning quite windy across western parts of Scotland too, a chance we could see some coastal gales. But across Northern Ireland, Wales, southwest England, plenty of clear skies and lighter winds. So it's likely we'll see some mist and fog by the morning, and also some isolated frost at times. Heading our way over to Scotland first thing on Friday, and once again mostly dry, some patchy cloud in places, but some rather strong winds across any exposed coasts in the west. Fairly breezy around western coast of Northern Ireland too, but remaining mostly dry here. Similar across northern parts of England and across Wales, parts of the southwest, some isolated frost, some mist and fog, but things won't turn quite as chilly across parts of East Anglia and Sussex and Kent. More cloud pushing in through here, and as we head through the course of the day, this cloud will continue to push its way westwards, and once again we could see some showers associated with this. The best of the brightness will be across Northern Ireland, parts of Wales and southwest England. Also western Scotland will be fairly bright, but once again it will be quite windy here at times too. Temperatures won't be quite as high as we head into tomorrow, highs reaching around 16 to 17 degrees Celsius. Later into Friday evening, it won't turn quite as chilly, cloudier skies stopping too much frost developing also. And also we'll start to see some rain, some stronger winds begin to push in from the west. That leads to some unsettled weather for Saturday, also some rain and showers through Sunday, but then eventually turning brighter into next week.
Today, clouds overhead, total.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A1M northbound between junctions 61 and 62 in Durham is congested. A collision has closed the M56 eastbound at junction 3A, but it should resolve soon. The A14 westbound in Northamptonshire is closed due to a vehicle fire, with improvements expected tonight. The M25 anti-clockwise at junction 21A in Hertfordshire has one lane closed, causing delays. In Surrey, the M3 westbound between junctions 2 and 3 is closed due to an overturned vehicle. And on the trains, there is disruption between Loughborough and Leicester on East Midlands Railway and the Elizabeth line to and from London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up.
got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Jubes and Co coming up tonight. After weeks of rumours, it looks set to be official. All UK adults will need a digital ID card. Cut to the chase and tell me, what do you think to this? And a Pride in Place programme to be launched to help you take control of your neglected high street. Will this finally be the plan that helps these long deprived areas? Let's take a look. And I heard an awful orchestra of blood-curdling screams before seeing children as young as 6 fleeing in a stampede for their lives. That is what the Southport taxi driver who dropped off Axel Rudakabana told the inquiry today. But upon seeing and hearing the above, he simply drove away. So I'm asking you, how obligated should people be to call the police when they have witnessed an incredibly serious crime? And last but not least, 200 benefits claimed per day were granted for anxiety and depression in the first year of Labour. How sustainable is this? All of that and lots more keeping me company in my panel tonight. The former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the journalist and former political advisor, Joe Phillips. But before we get stuck in, here's your 6 o'clock news headlines.
Good evening, it's 1 minute past 6. I'm Katie Bowen in the GB newsroom. GB News sources understand that every adult in Britain will require a new government-issued digital ID card under plans to be set out by Sir Keir Starmer. The Prime Minister is expected to announce the move in a bid to tackle illegal immigration. It's understood Sir Keir Starmer will outline the details in a speech tomorrow. Plans for what's being called a Brit card will be subject to consultation and will require legislation. Under the proposal, anyone starting a new job will be required to show the digital ID, which would then be automatically checked against a database of those who are entitled to live and work in the UK. Elsewhere today, 2 more migrants have been removed to France under the government's partial returns deal, bringing the total so far to 6. The latest deportations involved an Afghan and a Somali, following reports last week of people from Iran, Eritrea, India and Afghanistan. The pilot scheme, agreed with France in July, allows small boat arrivals to be detained and sent back across the Channel in exchange for the same number approved through safe and legal routes. The first arrivals under the deal, a family of 3 with a young child, landed in Britain yesterday. Andy Burnham says Labour MPs have urged him to challenge Sir Keir Starmer for the party leadership, but he insists he isn't plotting a return to Westminster. The Greater Manchester Mayor says he's ready to play any role as Labour faces what he calls an existential threat. Mr Burnham defended his record, saying he'd been working behind the scenes on the Hillsborough law. Chancellor Rachel Reeves said that the Prime Minister is focused on delivering real change. The taxi driver who dropped off the Southport killer at the dance class where he murdered 3 children has told a public inquiry he regrets not calling the police sooner. Driver Gary Poland did not call emergency services until 50 minutes after hearing screams at the heart space. Giving evidence to the Southport inquiry today, Mr Poland said he threatened to call the police when Rudakabana ignored his requests to pay, but thought he'd gone to get money from the building where the Taylor Swift-themed dance class was being held. He added that he thought there was a gunman and that he could be a target. Rudakabana murdered Elsie Stankham, BB King and Alice de Silva Aguiar and attempted to murder 10 others in the attack in July last year. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been sentenced to 5 years in jail for criminal conspiracy over millions in illicit funds from Libya's Gaddafi. The Paris court cleared him of corruption and illegal campaign financing, but said he let aid seek financial support for his 2007 campaign. The 70-year-old insists the case is politically motivated, but the ruling means he faces prison even if he appeals. He was also fined €100,000. And Jaguar Land Rover has said some of its IT systems are back online after being hit by a cyber attack late last month. A spokesman for the British car maker said that a phased restart has begun, with parts of their digital system now operational again. Ministers have been weighing emergency support for JLR's suppliers after a cyber attack halted output at 3 UK plants. Unions say the disruption, costing $50 million a week, threatens tens of thousands of jobs in the supply chain. Those are your latest GB News headlines. So let's go back to Michelle.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you very much for that, Katie. My name's Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes and Co with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got my panel, the former editor of The Sun, Kelvin Mackenzie, and the journalist and former political advisor, Jo Phillips. Good evening to both of you. You're very welcome tonight. As are each and every single one of you, I've come to work with a real spring in my step today. And I don't quite know why. I don't quite know why.
As though somebody's just told you a dirty joke.
No, I can assure you that has definitely not happened, ladies and gents. I'm just in quite a good mood tonight, albeit quite cold. Are you sitting there at the moment quite chilly? The sun's out, but it is not all that warm, is it? Anyway, join the conversation in all the usual ways. Email me gbviews@gbnews.com. Go to the website gbnews.com/yoursay. Of course, you can tweet or you can X me. So much we need to discuss together tonight, ladies and gents. I cannot wait to discuss with you what happened with that Southport taxi driver. I am literally almost speechless. We'll come to that a little bit later on in the programme. But before we get stuck in, we've debated digital ID, haven't we, on this programme together? Many of you have told me your thoughts. You're not up for it. Well, I've got some bad news for you because it looks like it is more than likely set to happen. Christopher Herb, our political editor, I can go live to him now. Good evening to you, Christopher. Bring us up to speed.
That's right. I'm afraid for those who don't like it, it's coming. Probably announced as soon as tomorrow by the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer. There'll be legislation requiring all adults, all of us over the age of 18, to hold a digital ID that can be checked by officials against a central database when we try and get work or other reason. Again, when you're being checked for your ID will become a crucial debate being debated in Parliament in coming months and years. It'll be used to track down illegal workers. The PM was sceptical, but Shabana Mahmood is keen. She's the new Home Secretary. It's being led, though, by the Science Department, which is interesting, and Number 10, which is very interesting. The view from the government, it seems, is that the number of ID cards you need, ID documents, maybe it's the passport, maybe it's the driving licence, they can be faked at the moment. There's concerns that allows people who arrive here illegally to slip into our black economy and work illegally. This whole idea was originally dreamt up by the Blair government back in the late 2000s, then scrapped by the Conservative and Lib Dem coalition on civil liberties grounds. I'm not surprised. If you look at the detail here, the feeling the critics might say it's punishing all of us for a failure by this government to deal with the issue of illegal working and those numbers in their thousands crossing our southern border by a small boat. We're all going to have it. Concerns immediately by old people, pensioners. There are around 2.1 to 2.4 million people over the age of 65 who don't use the internet. 4 million lack the skills to use the internet efficiently. How will they cope with a digital ID card? Where will they get it? How can they have it? Have they got a smartphone? If not, how can you have a card? How will it work? There's Big Brother concerns. We're being watched by the state increasingly. Where will this end? A huge interesting battle is about to start. In the past few moments, I've been sent the response of Kevin Badenoch, who's the Tory leader. I should say it's interesting. She is not against this idea. She says this is an announcement, a desperate gimmick, and it will do nothing to stop the boats. She says there are arguments for and against digital ID, but mandating its use will be a very serious step that requires a proper national debate. Instead, it's a throwaway conference announcement designed to attract attention away from the concerns the government's got with Andy Burnham and Morgan McSweeney, the government's chief of staff. And again, they're struggling to enforce their one-in, one-out scheme, and that's why they're bringing this in. They say here only the Tories would have a plan to end the abuse, enforce the law and put British interests first by disapplying the Human Rights Act for and deporting anyone who arrives in our country illegally. So fascinating there that the Tory leader, as things stand, is not against digital ID cards, because back in the day the Lib Dems were against it and the Tories were, and that's why the idea collapsed in 2010. What do you think?
You don't want to hear what I think, Christopher Hope, because it contains an expletive and it'll make your hair curl, my friend. But for now, thank you very much for giving us that update. Kelvin Mackenzie, what do you think?
Well, my view is you've got more chance of winning one of those houses that amaze offer on television all the time than stopping illegal migration through this route. I've just had a quick look on Google, and Germany, it's impossible to be certain about these things, but Germany thinks that there are 225,000 illegals, they've got ID, and France looks as though it has the highest number of illegal migrants at 400,000, and they have ID. So the idea that you will stop the illegality, there might be very good reasons, right? There might be very good reasons. If you are a landlord, you have to prove lots of stuff. Your tenant has to prove a lot of stuff before they can come in, and it's the same with the bank. There's a whole load of checks already there. Therefore, there's no reason to think that those checks couldn't be carried out on well, actually, it'll be in your phone. However, to stop illegal migrants wandering around our high streets or wandering around our streets or just generally being receiving employment through this route, I'm afraid that will not work.
Joe?
I used to be really opposed to the idea of ID cards, but I think times have changed. And I think we all give so much information about ourselves and our lifestyles, you know, including where our car's parked, what the dog's going to eat for supper, what we're going to eat for supper, how many steps you've done and all of that sort of stuff. And I think it makes sense now, and I think there will be less resistance. I would absolutely hate it if it became something where it was a criminal offence not to be able to produce your digital ID card. But I do think it might go some way to closing some of the loopholes in the black economy.
No, but isn't that the entire point? I mean, I hope that it does become a thing that you have to produce it, because otherwise, then there would be absolutely no point. So if cops are walking down the street and they see somebody and they say, you know, who are you and can you prove it? If somebody says, oh, well, I don't have to do this, then what is the point? They're supposed to be using this in order to stop illegals wandering around our nation. And what is interesting is now explains why Yvette Cooper got the bump. She got the bump because she was sceptical, as the Home Secretary, that this would work. So they solved that problem, and they thought she was doing a good job, and they moved her to Foreign Secretary, and they got somebody in, Mahmood. They got her in because she actually was a nodding dog on this.
It would make sense that, you know, at the moment you say, OK, I'm Kelvin Mackenzie, I've come for a job here, and I said...
Can I say to you that day ended some years ago?
You say you wouldn't even get as far. You say Kelvin Mackenzie, you'd be out the door.
Yeah.
Well, there is.
You wouldn't get in the door.
No, that's true. But there is a point where, you know, you're supposed to check as an employer, but you're checking paper documents, somebody's dodgy passport. You could have borrowed it from somebody else. I do think it makes sense. I think it will also streamline access to things like benefits income tax and those sort of...
Come on, streamlined benefits. We've already got them streamlined to the point where something like 9 million people in our country.
But it may, as soon as you get your national insurance number, that should be your gateway, if you like, to everything as a British citizen. And it seems to make sense to me now that if you have got those...
But the basis of this, Joe, to be honest, the way it's being sold is that in some curious way, like smashing the gangs, it's going to stop illegal migration.
Right. Kelvin Mackenzie, Christopher Hope asked me what I thought, and I would have sworn, but I've composed myself now.
Right.
This, I know you can't go swearing on 6 o'clock tea time telly. You won't ever see me again. I get booted off.
No, you just go to late nights.
No, you don't want me on late night. I could X-rated Jubes.
Well, nobody's watching late night, as far as I know.
I'll tell you what I think. I think it's an absolute disgrace. This concept that this is to stop illegal migration, that is a lie. That is just the latest low-hanging fruit excuse that they've come up with to try and get people to buy into this, because they know the public sentiment is against illegal migration. People want it controlled. So what they're bargaining on and gambling on is there's such a fury about illegal migration that this might finally be the thing that allows us to get this over the line. They've tried to get this over the line now for goodness knows how many decades. They've failed all the time. And actually, I don't bank on Keir Starmer actually being able to implement this pre-2029. So I don't imagine it's actually going to be implemented anywhere if my understanding of their ability to do this is correct. Everything that you just mentioned, Joe, you say, oh, yeah, we go to supermarkets, we park. Okay. There's a really key point to that, and that is called consent. You choose.
Yes.
If you choose to go to a supermarket and have a loyalty card, you choose to give all that data away. If you choose to, I don't know, go on whatever and fill in whatever, that's a choice. When you start mandating to people that this is what you have to do, people must always remember the COVID lockdowns and what they did to people. They had vaccine passports. They tried to control you within an inch of your life. If you don't have this injection, which, by the way, does not stop transmission. They stopped you travelling, they stopped you socialising.
But the
if
government...
you trust this government...
The previous government brought in the need for photographic ID in order to be able to vote.
But I've got no issue. I've got no issue with you having to prove that you're eligible to vote.
So if you
based on a plethora of ID and everything that's available.
Some people don't have passports. Some people don't have driving licences.
But then in that case, you can apply by choice. Again, the key word is choice. You're not mandated to vote. There's no mandate.
Well, you can
choose to apply for an ID card if that's what you want to do.
If we want to crack down on illegal working...
Oh, right. How's that playing out in countries that have got... European countries that have got ID cards?
It hasn't made the slightest difference.
No illegal migration, no illegal
I'm not
working.
saying... But it's not all about illegal migration. It's about an illegal...
But that's the way it's being sold.
I know, and I know that's Michelle's point. But it is, in principle... It is not a bad idea.
Isn't it? I mean, I actually take Michelle's view on this, but isn't it the truth about the matter is that they can't solve the migration, they can't solve the illegal migration issue, they can't stop people coming across, they're not prepared to do the really tough, make the tough decisions, so they keep on making these kind of quasi-legal or quasi-PR exercises in order to stop it, and that doesn't work. And all that will happen now is there will be a tremendous row about this, and then the numbers coming into the country will be exactly the same, and along comes Farage, and that will be the end of it.
You mentioned about dissent. There's a protest, I know already, a protest that's planned for this weekend. There's many, many people that say that they don't consent to this. I think it is an absolute disgrace. How dare you? How dare you be so poor at your job when it comes to managing migration that we've already got to live with our communities and all the rest of it changed beyond recognition because of this problem? How dare you, because of your own inability, now enforce even more consequence onto law-abiding British people? Absolute disgrace. My inbox is on fire. That sounds painful, I know. But so many of you are getting in touch. You're not happy. Also, as well, in a minute, when I come back, I'll put the QR code back on the screen and you can join a poll and give us your thoughts on digital ID, talking about your high street. How's it looking? Plans afoot to allow you to take control of things like derelict shops, derelict pubs and so on. Is this going to fix deprived communities?
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays, I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the...
unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, everybody. Long story short, pretty much every single one of you that's got in touch with me does not support mandatory digital ID cards. If you do, get in touch and tell me, because I'm fascinated to hear that perspective as well. Also, you can join the conversation. There's a poll. I'll get it on the screen now. If you've got a smartphone, you can take a picture of that and you can join the poll and give your view. And I will announce how that result is looking towards the end of the programme. Look, let's talk about your high street, your community. Are you proud of it? There's been an announcement today for hundreds of so-called deprived locations getting extra cash. Let's listen to our Chancellor, Rachel Reeves.
We're announcing today 250 places in the country that have been most forgotten by the previous government, getting £20 million each over a period of a few years. And along with that come new powers as well to take greater control of your area. So that money could be used, for example, if a pub in your community has closed or a community centre is closed. You both have the right to purchase it, the first dibs, if you like, but also the money through this scheme to make that become a reality.
Jo Phillips, your thoughts?
Well, we've been down this rather boarded up road before, haven't we? We had the Levelling Up Fund under the previous government. We had, the Town Centres Fund under David Cameron. We've had umpteen initiatives, bringing in people like Mary Porter's Queen of Shops to try and revitalise town centres. Half of this stuff, or a lot of this stuff, already exists. People have got the right to take over something as a community asset and have what Rachel Reeves referred to there as first dibs. The government is now extending that to give people longer, that is a year instead of 6 months. It's a great idea that you can say, as a resident, I don't want another vape shop or another barber's or another fried chicken shop. shop, because at the moment that doesn't have much sway in planning. But I think, you know, this isn't really looking at the big question, which is, why have our high streets died? Well, it's a combination of factors. It's business rates, it's out-of-town shopping centres, it's online shopping. If you bring people back to live in town centres and are a bit more imaginative about housing over shops and in the middle of town centres, you would actually create an environment where people are going shopping and they're going to the bakers or the butchers or the greengrocers or whatever, instead of all sitting at home and either doing it online or not being able to afford to get anything. The other thing is, you know, accessibility. But if you make it easier for people to be in there, town centres and high streets, it will help. But we have seen high streets destroyed by greedy landlords, greedy councils, and a lack of imagination.
Kelvin?
This is money we don't possess, given to people who won't know what to do with it. And the truth about the matter is that the high street is over in the old-fashioned way that we viewed a high street. Great success. When you can get, when you don't need to go down to Boots, you can just contact Amazon, and the following day a tube of toothpaste turns up. It tells you what's what. And if you want food, you don't have to go down to the fish and chip shop. No, you can get it delivered to you. So look, the reality, it's over. This is another attempt, I don't know, actually, to draw fire on the fact that their ratings are now 10 points behind Reform. They're trying to look as though they're of the people. There are towns out there which look absolutely dreadful. A friend of mine, if anybody's watching this, I'm very sorry about this, went to Workington the other week. He said he's never come across anywhere so shocking in his life. Well, right, and you could spend 2 million, 200 million, 2 billion, 20 trillion on it, and it wouldn't make the slightest bit of difference. Look, if there's anybody from Workington watching who believes that that's an unfair analysis, would you contact my friend Owen Francis, not me?
I seem to remember in one of the election campaigns, didn't they create a character called the Workington Man? Am I making that up? I do tend to have strange thoughts sometimes.
There was Mondeo Man.
No, I thought there was
Working woman.
Man. I don't know. You lot will get in touch and tell me if I'm talking nonsense. You don't. You're not backwards in coming forwards. Look, I was going to talk a little bit more about high streets, but I'm absolutely itching to move on to my next topic because it is so shocking. The Southport inquiry and what happened with the taxi driver that dropped off Axel Rudakabana. I'm going to see you in a minute and we are going to discuss.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heaviest and most thundery rain that's been affecting parts of Central Europe through recent days, that's now starting to ease. But nonetheless, a fair few showers across parts of Greece and nearby countries as we go through Friday. A few showery bursts still across Italy, could still be quite heavy towards the north. Meanwhile, further west across much of Spain and Portugal, it's largely fine, albeit with a few showery bursts pushing towards Madeira and the Canary Islands. Lots of fine weather for most of us through into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Looking ahead, it's set to be another dry day tomorrow, then a change over the weekend. It's likely we'll see some outbreaks of rain push in from the west. That's all due to low pressure moving its way in from the Atlantic as high pressure slips away off to the east. And as it does so, it does bring in a slight change in our wind direction, more south to southeasterly flow. So we'll see more cloud push into parts of East Anglia, Sussex and Kent. This may produce some showers, also some showers possible across Yorkshire and Lincolnshire. But elsewhere, mostly dry, plenty of clear skies. So it's likely we'll see some mist and fog once again during the morning. Also some isolated rural frost, but most towns and cities remaining in the mid to high single figures. Now, to start the day across Scotland, yes, it will be mostly dry, but it's going to be fairly gusty, particularly around western coasts. A chance of some coastal gales here. So it's unlikely to see any mist or fog during the morning, so mostly bright but breezy start, and fairly similar across Northern Ireland too. But across the rest of England and Wales, once again, it could be fairly chilly. Some mist and fog, particularly around any valleys. Not feeling quite as cold, though, across parts of the southeast. More cloud here. And as we progress through the course of the day, this cloud will spread its way further inland. so it's likely that sunshine will turn more hazy in nature, and once again this cloud could be thick enough to produce the odd isolated shower. But for most it should be another dry day, the best of the brightness across parts of the west, and not feeling quite as warm as it did this afternoon, highs reaching around 16 to 17 degrees Celsius in the southeast. Now, as we head into Saturday, we'll start to see this change. This frontal system pushing in from the west, at times bringing some quite persistent and heavy outbreaks of rain, at first into Northern Ireland and then pushing its way eastwards into western Scotland, western parts of England and Wales, where it could linger through much of the day. But most of the east should be mostly dry and bright, and then it looks like turning brighter as we head into next week. That's it from me. Bye-bye.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. An accident on the M3 westbound in Surrey has closed 2 lanes, causing 10-minute delays. A major collision on the M56 eastbound in Manchester has shut down all lanes, significantly disrupting travel. 1 lane on the M4 eastbound in South Gloucestershire is closed temporarily for a vehicle tyre change. A vehicle fire on the A14 westbound in Northamptonshire is affecting traffic. On the trains, expect disruptions between Loughborough and Leicester and on the Elizabeth line to and from London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Jubes and Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Calvin Mackenzie and Joe Phillips. Bonnie has said, what a nice name, Bonnie. You're not Bonnie Blue, are you? I hope not. Anyway, Bonnie has got in touch and says, Michelle, this digital ID, is it going to be to track the taxpayers too? Of course it will be. And by the way, you've already seen rumours about people getting direct access into bank accounts to take debts from people like HMRC, etc., etc. I haven't actually found anyone that's watching that thinks that these are a fantastically good idea. You're very welcome, though, if that is your view. Get in touch and just help me understand why. Also, as well, what a useless panel I have, because I mentioned the Workington man. These two were supposed to be political titans. They just looked at me daft, but many of my viewers have pointed out that I was right.
Oh, right.
Well, thank you very much. The Workington man was a political term. Basically, it was coined in the run-up to the 2019 general election.
Was it?
Described the stereotypical swing voter who it was believed would determine the election results. Stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
Well, that turned out to be completely untrue, didn't it?
And that gave us Boris Johnson. How lovely.
Well, I didn't say it was. I didn't say it was like a seamless
Workington has
strategy.
a lot to answer for.
Yeah, and it was nothing to do with me, by the way. It just stuck in... I don't remember very much these days, but certain random things do stick in my memory. Anyway, look, some breaking news for yourself. Sit yourself down, ladies and gents. Sir Keir Starmer has been speaking to regional news outlets tonight. Many of them, those interviews embargoed till 6 o'clock. Are you ready? He said the following. Donald Trump's claim that London, quote, wants to go to Sharia law is ridiculous nonsense. Also, he said he's going to lead from the front into the next general election. The front of the dole queue, I would imagine, but I might be wrong. We shall see. Anyway, there you go. What's the matter with you?
I like that. You lead from the front. We'll make a change from leading from the rear, as he's been doing for the last 15 months, wouldn't it?
I know. Well, anyway, look, what do you make to those comments? They will be across the news waves, I should imagine, but don't be switching over, please, because we have got a lot to discuss tonight. Now, this is something... I don't get shocks very often. I'm a very thick-skinned northerner, but we all know the absolutely horrendous, awful atrocity that occurred in Southport. You also know that the Southport inquiry is taking place as we speak. Well, up at that inquiry today, my goosebumps have come already. It was the turn of the taxi driver, the chap that delivered that horrendous killer. I don't even like using this killer's name. I just think it's just gross. But anyway, he dropped off that man to the scene. The taxi driver is a chap called Gary Poland. I'm referencing his name, by the way, not to incite a pile-on, but when I do this, lots of people get in touch going, oh, what was his ethnicity, what was his religion, all this and all that and the other. He's a chap from Southport, this taxi driver, long-standing history of being a taxi driver. He said the following. He drops that man off at the scene. The man didn't pay the bill, and he hung around for a couple of moments waiting to see whether or not this guy was going to come back and pay the bill. This is what he then said. An orchestra of blood-curdling screams filled the air. Scream after scream pierced my ears. The screams sounded like a mix of young and old, male and female. It was terrifying. I was in a state of complete mortal terror and shock. Then I saw a massed huddle of children aged approximately 6 or 7 years old. They stumbled and ran in a panicked hurry out of Hart Street. They were screaming. It was like a stampede for their lives. I mean, I've just got goosebumps. Because do you know what he did, ladies and gents? After seeing and hearing these blood-curdling screams and seeing these children fleeing for their lives, and he knew that something was happening, he drove off. He just drove off. He's got rear dash cam footage. He was seen looking in his rearview mirror, so he knew, he saw and he heard what was happening. He drove off. He rang his friend not once but twice. He picked up another fare, did a bit of driving around, even went home. It was only 50 minutes later that he deemed it appropriate to actually call 999. On the fare that he picked up after the dropping off that guy, he even remarked to his passenger, he saw a speeding police car, he saw the police car speeding by and made a remark on it. He said, I quote, "He's in a rush, isn't he?" This sickens me, ladies and gents, absolutely sickens me. And I just don't even know, your own moral conscience, how you could do that, how you could not make that call. He was on the phone to his mate. The call, you've heard the transcript of the call. He was basically just saying what a good job it was, essentially, that he wasn't the victim of this. I don't understand how someone's mind can operate like that, Kelvin Mackenzie. Am I being harsh?
No, I don't think so. His claim was that he panicked. But actually, the evidence he gave was that he was concerned that when he had dropped the guy off, there'd been a verbal battle between him and the Southport killer, and he was concerned clearly that the killer might come after him. But he need only to have driven around the corner, as you point out, and literally dialed 999, and he would have covered the bases on that. Now, what is unclear to me is, was the fact that he didn't make the call, did that lead to even more injuries than if he had made the call? So that's not clear. But what is clear in this inquiry by the KC acting for the government effectively in this case is that they don't believe that he suffered from panic attacks, because in the transcript of his conversation with his friend,
yes,
he was basically indicating that actually, I was lucky to get away with it and all the rest of it. He was quite balanced about it. And when you take on a fare, I presume you've got to have the person come in, where you're going to go, have a discussion with them. As it said, he talked about the police car. There is nothing in this man's favour. Now, the next question is this. Should there be some kind of law which deals with that kind of moral turpitude? I'm not in favour of that. This man has to live with that decision for the rest of his life. I'm not quite sure how the families will view him, but they have enough to deal with anyway, and they may just shrug their shoulders.
Let me just respond to one of the technicality points first. The teacher, Leanne Lucas, she actually dialed 999 27 seconds after those screams were heard in Mr. Poland's dash cam. The police then went on and said that even if the cab driver had dialed 999, it wouldn't have likely resulted in police officers arriving any quicker on the scene, because, of course, that teacher, Leanne Lucas, had made that call after 27 seconds. Of course, it took Mr. Poland 50 minutes.
I find it quite astonishing, and Kelvin just referred to it, that he didn't call the police, but he managed to call his friend.
Twice.
Yes, and the friend worked in the garage next to the dance studio. So he was not in a state of shock at the time. He was in a state of shock that he could phone up his friend and pretty much say, I heard these shots and I just shot off. Lucky he didn't shoot me. And I'm leaving out the expletives. And then he called him again. So I think this is quite appalling. I am sure that he lives with regret, and hope he thinks about what he failed to do, because it is quite shocking, even though, as you just said, Michelle, it probably wouldn't have made any difference.
Well, he said at the inquiry, and this is a quote directly from him, "I consider I should have called the police earlier, and in hindsight, I wish I had done, and it's something that I think about every day. What I should have done and how this is my fault because I drove him there, and I regret not helping the children. Their screams were harrowing, and I can still hear them when I think back to that day." He says, "I was in a state of complete mortal terror and shock." What's happened to us, ladies and gents? What's happened? This happens so often now that we've got a walk-on-by kind of culture. Where's it come from? It's like... I get it. I would like to sit here now and play, Billy Big Chops and say, oh, yeah, I'd get out my car and I'd run in, and I would like to hope, I would sincerely like to hope that I would go and help those girls. However, even if you can't even muster that, because everyone reacts differently in flight and fight. But you just go and call. Yeah, even if you didn't do that, when you're locked in your car and you've driven around the corner, to not dial 999 is inexcusable. And I'm trying to work out if there's something that's gone wrong in society that's...
Yeah, but what happens? What happened the other week when that guy with no clothes on, right, no clothes below the waist,
on the
was on the tube train, right, and... They told him, a group of men told him to put his clothes on correctly, and the guy defied it, and a fight took place, and there was a lot of punching and a lot of kicking. Those guys were then rounded up by the police, right? Why? Why does that happen? So you face two problems. One, you may be stabbed to death yourself, right? And you know what the atmosphere is like on a London Underground train. If you see fighting going on like that, you move away, right? So, and then you find out the police then want to interview you and possibly even arrest you if you don't turn out. What are you supposed to do? In this particular case, there was no threat to him, and actually that was a shocking piece of behaviour that he has to live with. But there are other incidents happening left, right and centre in which I kind of understand why people don't want to get involved. In London, it is a very dangerous place,
I understand
the Underground.
Why people don't get involved. But I absolutely don't understand why somebody who is safe in a locked car could drive around the corner and not just out of... It's a common sense. You call up. I mean, if you see... We've all done it. You see somebody fall over in the road, you phone 999. There's probably 12 of you doing it all at the same time, apart from the ones who are taking photographs of the person lying in the road. And, it might be irritating for the call handler.
I think it's a dangerous world out there to literally to intervene. And in fact, the police tell you specifically, don't be brave.
The police chief not that long ago actually said the opposite, and he encouraged people not to get involved in, like, I don't know, serious violent crime. But I'm sure he indicated that.
But tell me, as a woman, or as women, right? You're on the Underground, which is a very, there's a great air of hostility on the Underground. I think at the moment, I have no idea why. Actually, how do you feel when you see, for instance, a couple of drunk men start fighting and all the rest of it?
Well, you just, I'm sure Michelle is the same, and all the women watching, you just have got used to, being ready to move, having sensible shoes on, having your bags and things ready.
I have my keys sticking through my knuckles.
It's the same when I walk back from the station. But, I'm afraid that goes with our territory.
Well, what do you think? I mean, should there, like to Kelvin's point, should there be some kind of law that compels civic duty? Should there be something where if you see a serious crime, you are compelled to act in terms of summoning help, and if you don't, there will be legal consequences for you? Would you support that? And finally, I'm very delighted I found you, Kerry in Gravesend. You support digital ID, and I'll read out her reasons. You're very efficient. She's given me not one, not two, but 5 bullet points as to her reasons why. I'll tell you what they are after the break, but I also want to talk to you about mental health claims for anxiety and depression through the roof. Is this sustainable?
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Jubes, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GBNews family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel. At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Jubes and Co. We was busy there nattering in the break, sharing awful experiences that people have been having on the public transport. I know, Kelvin McKenzie seems to be at the heart of a lot of them, make of that what you will. Anyway, Kelvin and Joe are alongside me. Lots of you just got in touch telling me what they do in France. So thank you for that. I wasn't aware of that. Phil's saying in France they have something called a Good Samaritan law, basically, which compels people to offer assistance in an emergency. A lot of people have got in touch, actually, and told me something along those lines. What a good idea. I'm going to go and look that up after the programme because, I mean, come on. You can't have a situation where people are just not even trying to get emergency assistance to 6-year-old little girls that are being maimed and perhaps even killed. That cannot be all right, can it, in a functioning society? But the thing that's got you really riled up tonight, I'm telling you, is this digital ID. Kerry, she's got in touch and said, Michelle, I am right of centre politically. I think the criticism of digital ID is ridiculous. She goes, here's a few reasons. 1, if you're a law-abiding citizen, what on earth have you got to worry about? 2, if you are an illegal migrant, you'd have to present your card, then you would have something to worry about, which is good. 3, of course it must be compulsory, otherwise it would never work. And 4, you're already required by law to have a driving licence, so it's the same principle. And 5, other great democracies have it and have far less illegal working than the UK, she says. Oh,
well, we don't know that. That last point I don't accept. We don't know that. The AI on Google says that there were anywhere between 350,000 and 400,000 illegals in France. So, you know, and they've had it for years, and it clearly hasn't put anybody off going to France. And it won't put anybody coming to the UK. That is the problem. And when that happens, then what do we do?
Well,
do we have a super ID?
Super ID is what we debated yesterday. I'm sure you was watching Jubes and Co, so you're all across
there is never a minute go by I'm not watching it.
Good, leave the telly on at all times. I need the ratings, thank you. Look, let's talk about benefits, shall we? A record number, get this, 633,000 people are now claiming disability benefits for anxiety and mood disorders. But what I found most interesting is about 200 new claims a day have been approved in the first year of the Labour government. One of my viewers, Cattle Dog, you call yourself GB News member, thank you, we appreciate that. They say anxiety and depression, I've definitely had that since Keir Starmer has got in. You will have very strong opinions on this, Kelvin Mackenzie, if I know you. Your thoughts?
The reality is, what I can't understand is how it is that a civil servant or a system is now giving a tick to anybody who turns up and says that I have trouble sleeping because of anxiety or depression. But of course it's all attracted to money, because you can be in work and you can still get PIP. So you can get between 1950 and 9,750 a year. So it's and I think that's tax-free. So there's a good old bonus. Why don't we just stop doing it? Why don't we just say, we haven't got the money, I'm very sorry, if you've only got one leg or you've got some kind of proper permanent disablement, we understand it. Actually, depression and anxiety, which are the kind of bad backs of the 2020s and 2030s, we can't simply afford it. It's costing us billions. Where is this money coming from? If we had spare money, I wouldn't give it to them anyway, but we haven't got any money. We're having to tax ourselves by about another 40 billion coming up on November the 26th. And so are actually the young people rather cleverer than we thought? They can claim to be anything they like, because it's impossible to disprove.
Well, and that's part of the problem. It's this online claiming, and actually that came in during COVID, as many things did. There was no need for anybody to go down and actually report in person, including telephone consultations with doctors and things like that, who have already, we know have got other things to deal with. So one of the reforms the government could have brought in, and the previous government, in fact, make sure it's a face-to-face interview to stop this online or telephone claiming. Get tough on it. I mean, the figures are shocking, but what is really shocking, that there are nearly 18,000 under 25s starting on PIP, the personal independence, for anxiety and depression. That's 47 people a day. Now, this is unsustainable.
But when you say it's unsustainable, Jo, you are the Prime Minister now, and you call in your Cabinet and Secretary of State for Health, and you say, this is unsustainable. Yeah. What are you going to do? Right? Well, what are you going to do?
Well, one of the things is what I've just said.
What, face-to-face?
Face-to-face. Stop this online or telephone application, because then you can see, and really train up the people who are assessing the claims. Tell doctors to stop signing people off on this, because I'm assuming that you have to have a doctor's note on this, and I'm not dismissing for 1 minute real mental health issues. But we're never going to be resilient for anything or anything that is facing us. Do you think that the young people of Ukraine, or Gaza for that matter, are feeling a little bit anxious and depressed? Do you think that, people who are living in other parts of the world? It is utterly ridiculous. And we've now got into this situation where so many young people are conned by social media, thinking that everything has got to be perfect all of the time, and they don't know how to deal with the general ups and downs.
But why don't we have a really nasty approach to it and just say, look, I tell you what, for 2026, we are actually not handing any PIP out at all to anybody claiming either depression or anxiety. We're just not doing it. And actually, if you're in work, you are not allowed to claim for it anyway, under any circumstances.
Well, I think that would, yes, if you put it onto the sort of the mental health, the sort of, category. I think for people who are in work but who've got conditions like cystic fibrosis, for instance.
Oh yeah, no. We're talking about people who say that I feel anxious about going to work, or I feel anxious about watching television, or I feel anxious about something. So it would be very interesting, actually, if one of your viewers who is claiming PIP for this actually called you up, Michelle, and said, well, actually, that's not fair. But you never hear anybody PRing the actual PIP aspect of it, because they know it.
Some of my viewers, some of them genuinely do struggle, and I do try and read lots of your emails and stuff, so they will get in touch with me and they'll say that actually they're frightened because they have got genuine ailments and illnesses and all the rest of it. And all of this conversation actually makes those people worse, and I feel sorry for people that genuinely struggle because you get dragged in, don't you, into a bad rep because of what I would just call freeloaders, really, that are not that ill. The British Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure it was them earlier on, was suggesting that that taxpayers could perhaps subsidise wages of people that struggle with ill health to get them into the workplace.
No,
they was proposing that as a solution. What would you think to that?
I don't think it was the British Chambers of Commerce. I think your point, though, Kelvin, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been in a really busy A&E department.
Yeah, shocking, yeah.
And it's awful, and there are people there waiting for hours and hours. But when something really big happens, and quite often, you know, somebody will come out and say, you are going to be here for at least 9 hours before you get seen. It empties miraculously.
Well, there you go. A government spokesperson said we're reforming the broken welfare system by shifting our focus away from welfare and onto work, skills and opportunities, especially, they say, for younger people. We've also commissioned an independent review from Sir Charlie Mayfield aimed at helping the government and employers better support those with ill health who may be at risk of falling out of work to stay in employment. What do you think to that? Roger has been in touch and said, Michelle, I'm a Workington man, and Kelvin's summary of our town is quite accurate, he says. Workington man did indeed come to the forefront at the previous election. He tells me our two towns on the west coast, Workington and Whitehaven, are virtually alike in the fact that our town centres, he says, are a shambles, he says. But it's not all bad news because we can still buy a pint of beer for under £2 locally.
We're on our way.
Listen, Roger, I don't even drink pints, but I might even make an exception, quite frankly. I'd be absolutely legless on about £2.50, I would. Anyway, that's all I've got time for. Thanks to my panel. Thanks to you at home. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow night.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Looking ahead, it's set to be another dry day tomorrow.